One of this second edition of this prestigious program, which we have under the chairmanship of Mr. Shashwat Somani, and of course our both the co-chairs, Mr. Saurabh Bansal and Mr. Dalmia. And as we have already communicated, the second edition actually will share the outlook on how retail companies must reboot their business models as Indian shoppers' journey evolves in these changing times. As you all are aware, we have gone through a very tough time. And this webinar would also have the importance of how the brands needs to realign the priorities to enhance consumer and shopper experiences. So we invite each and every stakeholder with this industry, and at the same time, the idea is how the industry is going to take shape and how the industry can get benefit out of it. And we have pioneers in our retail committee, as I have already communicated. The leadership is very enthusiastic about this industry since they are from the same industry. And at the same time, we will also be sharing the notes with the concerned government departments, that how we are basically have the wish list and we need especially from the government. So with this note now, as I have already, congratulated each and every person, and of course the participants, those who are joining us today in this program, I would like to invite the moderator of this important program. First of all, I would like to invite our chairman of retail committee, Mr. Shashwat Somani, to kindly take it forward. And Shashwat ji, as I am already available, but if you wish, I would really want that if you can take it forward all the sessions, that would be great, so that the people can get benefit out of your experience and your clear vision for the retail industry. Over to you, Mr. Somani.
Thank you, Yogesh ji. Good afternoon to all. On behalf of the PhD Chamber of Commerce, I'm honored to welcome our distinguished dignitaries. As you're aware, the PhD Chamber of Commerce has been working as a catalyst for the promotion of the Indian industry for over 115 years now. It's a forward-looking, proactive, and very dynamic pan-India organization. And as a partner with industry and government, PhD has special focus on MSMEs, especially the grassroots level, with a strong national and international linkages for propelling progress, harmony, and integrated development of the Indian economy. The current global pandemic has banned travel worldwide, which has made it quite difficult for us. But we have had immense amount of conferences, exhibitions to carry out business with the Indian investors. As the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, we've ensured a smooth flow of business by adapting to the environment and conducting more than 300 webinars and 10 virtual exhibitions to cater to the industry. Our initiatives have been widely accepted and given due consideration by the government as well as private bodies. Similarly, the retail committee of the PhD Chamber of Commerce post-lockdown saw brands competing frantically, and eventually survival and growth will depend on the strategies and proactive approaches of these companies. And we at the retail committee are trying to do our very level best to ensure that retail is an industry not only thrives, but thrives. Business is obviously very unusual right now at the moment, and companies need to adapt to scale their operations. And we, as the retail committee, are trying to be instrumental in this shift. In the first edition of Retail 360, we had on 21st Jan, we explored strategies and structures that retail leaders have adopted to connect and protect their people, reuniting purpose and inspiring allegiances in the age of compassion fatigue. Coming back to today's topic, there's a second edition of the virtual series, Bridging Artificial Boundaries, the New Identity of Retail, Omnichannel. As you're aware, COVID-19 has changed the consumer relationship with brick and mortar retail. At this moment, retailers today operate in the eye of the hurricane, not quite sure which way the wind will blow, because brick and mortar stores are no longer safe, the default option for consumers. And e-commerce is no longer just an alternate revenue stream. Retailers that want to successfully navigate the winds of change to remain relevant and profitable in this new environment need to embrace the fact that they're already omni-channel organizations. They need to rise to the challenge of that holistic omni-channel experience to their customers, from online marketing to in-store purchases to mobile loyalty apps and so much more. Only companies that embrace this change will emerge from this tumultuous time stronger than they were before, prepared to overcome any challenge. Retailers who can create a true touchless automation, lowering risk to consumers and employees alike, look to set to enjoy competitive advantage in the future. The purpose of this session is to brainstorm with industry experts on how brick and mortar, traffic, and revenue will continue to normalize and see how that normalization must be accompanied by a holistic approach that serves as the same excellent experience in person and online. I would like to invite all the panelists to share their views that will shape the future of retail. I'm sure that the session today will entail a better understanding and strategic solutions towards the future of the retail industry. Thank you. I now invite amazing moderator for the day to go ahead with the session. I think
Thank
that
you.
there are a lot I can say about you, but I would like you to introduce yourself because if I start, then I think I might go on for a little bit longer.
You're embarrassing.
Can I have the privilege to invite Shashwat ji, Mr. Sameer Dhingra?
Of course.
May I?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Sameer Dhingra is the Director Retail and CPG, JAPAC Google Cloud. And we also need to understand about this CPG and JAPAC also, Mr. Dhingra. And Mr. Dhingra, I was basically going through on your profiles on Google, and since a great large experience you have, and as Mr. Somani has already pointed out that entire audience, which those who have connected with us today would certainly get a benefit out of it. So over to you, Mr. Dhingra, all yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yogesh, and thank you to Shashwat as well for giving me the opportunity. And really welcome to all the panelists today on the call. I was looking at the invite list, and I was really very excited because we've got such a diverse panel today. Covering not only groceries but apparel and CPGs and also from a digital and technology side. So I'm really looking forward to very interesting conversations with you all. Before we start off the discussion, may I request the panelists to just introduce themselves, if you may. I'll just start from myself. Yogesh has already talked about me. So I lead the retail and consumer business practice for Google Cloud for Asia Pacific and Japan. So the GAPAC, Dr. Yogesh, is the JPAC that we call it. It's the internal terminology, and I apologize to the terminologies in our corporate world. I'm based out of Singapore and very excited to be on the panel today with all of you. I believe Jiten, Riddhi, Harsh, and Smart are on the call. If you may, please, introduce yourselves to the audience.
And of course, the lady in the group, Riddhi Adlaka. So we are very honored to have a lady speaker also.
Thank you very much. Privilege and the pleasure is completely mine. My name is Riddhi Adlaka, as you know, and I have been associated with the PhD Chamber of Commerce for the second year. So I'm extremely excited, and it's a complete pleasure to be associated with you because the amount of learning that we take back is far more than what we share, to be brutally honest. I head the digital marketing for TCS, and I'm based out of Mumbai.
Thank you. Thank you, Riddhi. Really pleasure to have you on the panel today. May I call Jiten? Are you there?
Yeah, hi, I'm Jiten. I work as Senior Vice President Marketing for Max Fashion. It's a part of the Landmark Group chain, and I take care of the loyalty, the analytics, and the marketing piece of it. It's a pleasure being here. I'm sure looking forward to a lot of learning from you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jiten. Welcome. Harsh, I saw you there as well.
Hi. Hi, Sameer. Thanks a lot. I think it's been a great pleasure. I'm really proud year on year by the entire PhD Chamber of Commerce, by the way they have risen the bar on the initiatives. I think they've been very apt and have been associated for long across the pandemic times when everything was changing and the digital transformation was at the peak. I think PhD Chamber of Commerce have taken the initiative of talking about very cutting edge subjects and spreading that piece of knowledge. So congratulations to PhD CC for that. My name is Harshvardhan Chauhan, and I am Vice President, Chief Marketing and Omnichannel Officer for Spencer's Retail and Nature's Basket. And I'm sure we would have been possibly successful in touching some of the lives or some of the people in this forum by delivering groceries to your doorsteps in the thick and thin of pandemic. So that's what we have been doing with a presence across 35 cities, have been really at the peak of digital transformation and trying to solve one of the most difficult problem statements in the industry, which is hyperlocal grocery. So look forward to an enriching session.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for being on the panel today. And you really are at the front line of what is happening. And I'm sure, I'm positive that everybody has been touched by this by one way or the other. So looking forward to hearing.
Can I just share one thing with your permission, Sameerji?
Please.
Whenever we have in PhD such inspiring speakers, and as I have said at the outset that this committee is doing wonders. This retail committee under the chairmanship of Mr. Somani, number of people have joined, and when people like Harshvardhan say that we have actually raised the bar, to be very honest with you, I actually feel like going to the bar, and really it's really very meaningful when people like you, on a very serious note, I must say, that when you say that we have risen the bar, so entire credit goes to Shashwat Somani and Mr. Saurabh Bansal, and of course Mr. Dalmia with my colleague Ajay Bansal. Over to you, Sameerji, all yours.
Great.
Sameerji, with your permission, I would like to add just one more thing into what Dr. Srivastava has said.
Please.
So last year we have done our first event under Retail Committee because it's a new committee in PhD Chamber, which was Retail Supply Chain Summit. And for that first event, the first speaker confirmation which we got is for Ms. Riddhi Adlaka, which is still with us. And the first event after lockdown which we did, the first webinar which we did it with Mr. Harshvardhan Chauhan. So he was the first speaker for the first webinar on the lockdown stages when we are done.
Yeah.
So I must compliment gentlemen for the entire retail committee. I think the entire committee's endeavors have been really, really commendable.
Thank
so
you.
Great service to the entire industry, retail in particular.
Thank
Okay,
you
so we are among friends then, right? So I think we have Samars also on the call.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Smart Khanna. I head e-commerce business for Dabur India Limited, as well as I lead innovation cell for the company. A pleasure connecting with you all, and look forward for an thrilling session from here on.
Fantastic, thank you so much. Such a diverse panel. So let's get into it and have a conversation around what's happening in the market today. And I think I can't emphasize enough, and I'm sure everybody has already spoken enough about it at the beginning as well, that there's a dramatic shift which is happening in the consumer behavior as we see, not only the consumer behavior, but market changes, what are really driving a lot of shifts in the environment and ecosystem. We say this currently that roughly about 10 years of digital adoption has typically happened over the last 12 months. So, it has been compressed to that level that, organizations are really racing towards digitization. And me being part of Google Cloud, we see it every day, that it is basically a race to survival as of now. And, depending on the digital maturity of the organization, we are looking at various initiatives which are being run and the way you're addressing the market. I think I also just want to point out before I open the discussion that I understand that all of you or many of you are also facing tremendous challenges across the value chain. Not just about managing costs, but you have to boost your digital presence. You have to really rethink about your store operations. Organizational readiness is a big piece of the puzzle in terms of how do we really reorient our organizations and business models to be able to manage what is happening today. Supply chain, I'm not even getting into it. It's a whole new discussion completely. But most importantly, since I have got such tremendous marketeers on the call, I think it's all about rethinking the customer interactions and how do we really engage with our customers, post what has happened today and post and as we see things happening or unfolding in front of us. So with that as a background, I was thinking of focusing the discussion around 2 or 3 broad areas of topics. One being, how can we really, accelerate towards digital omnichannel kind of market presence in each of your business segments. The second, I wanted to sort of also pick your brains on how you are using data and how are you actually engaging with your customers today, and what are your strategies and initiatives that you're driving. I think it'll be very, very useful for our audiences to know the kind of areas and innovation areas that you're driving. And I think I will also touch briefly about a few other topics, especially on store transformation and operational efficiencies. So with that as a background, let me start with the first one and the most important one, which is all centered around consumer behavior. So, as you see the consumer behavior and expectations changing today, how are you navigating this minefield of expectations that you foresee in the market today? Let me start the conversation with Harsh, if I may, and start from the grocery experience and see as to how are you planning to deliver compelling experiences for your consumers and shoppers, Harsh, and how do you see the behaviors changing in the market from your perspective?
Absolutely. So pleasure, Samir, again. So I think last 12 months, and as you've rightly put it, I think Shashwat has also already set the note, putting into context the kind of digital transformation we've seen in last 9 to 12 months, right? Biggest stalwarts in the industry globally, when Satya Nadella put in that 3 years of digital transformation has been seen in just 9 months. I think it's a phenomenal statement in that right? And in Indian democracy, I think if you look at our geography, right, from March onwards, a lot of conversations strategically did happen to be in the playbooks of biggest organization of the Fortune 500. However, everything went into action at that point in time. So the change, I must say, has been nothing less than phenomenal. I think 3 big levers, if I have to pick up, is the big digital journey, which is often called as the Omnichannel Journey, which organizations have picked up, which is the sheer realization that organizations and brands have to exist at the cusp of physical and digital. And that comes from the greater realization that consumers inherently are omnichannel. I think with a big crisis in place, every organization, every brand was bound to pick up as one of their most strategic pillars, how do they accelerate digital transformation? In India, I think right from payments to the number of digital natives that have gone up in last 12 months, it's phenomenal. So we would have seen the next set of 50 million active shoppers who would have joined the bandwagon of e-commerce shopping or omnichannel shopping or digital experiences in India. And now when we see in hindsight, I think all of those experiences from a consumer standpoint are very inevitable. You can't imagine a homemaker going to a grocery shop to shop while footfalls are coming back and people are opening up to those markets and supermarkets again. But I think e-commerce has become a very strong and a very semi-permanent shift across the globe. So whether it is essentials or non-essentials, and I think we started talking that language during the pandemic, where for the first time businesses got categorized as essentials and non-essentials. So I think everything over a platform-based strategy has been the big change as far as brands are concerned. I think from a consumer standpoint, 3 big changes. I think in India, in last 2 decades, we were touched by the advent of e-commerce as early as 2005, right from disrupting discoverability, right from disrupting search and availability of products, and also from the standpoint of 51 million MSMEs. And that has been a great backbone for the consumption economy in India and the larger growth in GDP, the small, medium, and micro enterprises, which have fueled the consumption demand in the country. I think the democratization of the entire distribution through the power of e-commerce, digital and omnichannel enabling a small seller in the hinterlands of the country. And I remember we solving that piece when I was instrumental in building Shopcluse, one of the India's biggest marketplaces, typical like Alibaba, Tmall fashion. I think that shared democratization of digital enablement, empowerment of the sellers in the country has brought in a phenomenal change. So I think the way we have progressed in terms of bringing in larger convenience to consumers, whether in the form of doorstep delivery, the ease of payments, whether it is contactless, or the digital enablement across the supply chain of retail, that has brought in not just a large part of efficiencies, but as I truly put in terms of connected strategy, we have truly pushed the efficiency frontier of the retail industry curve. So all of them have been instrumental in delivering a very superior value to consumers. And as you said, Samir, delivering a superior consumer experience has become the forefront of all endeavors of any organization now. And all of that put together, I think, is a bigger change that I am anticipating. And I strongly believe as a professional that this is a strong foundation, and it has been offset of the Asian economy, of the surgence of the Asian tiger. But I think India has been certainly made its mark on the global map with its large demographic dividend. And the way e-commerce has helped reap those benefits with the entire omnichannel shift in consumer demand coming up, I think next 3-4 years will be really critical and pivotal in what changes we see in very basic industries through the digital transformation. So looking forward to it, I think when I see it both from a consumer standpoint and as an industry professional, it's a very promising change.
So, so basically, what you're saying is that the e-commerce is here to stay, and consumers have accepted the fact that it is a omni-channel world or multiple store formats. So, from Spencer's perspective, your organization's perspective, what are the key initiatives that you are doing to achieve and address those expectations from the customers?
Just 3 big things, and I think that would sum it up all. I still remember when March 20th, the lockdown happened. Our first realization was the way we would possibly able to disrupt and win the grocery battle in the country is to solve and aggregate a large part of the supply solution. And who would have thought, I think, and that's a great example of collaboration also industry-wide. And we still get proud of it when we recall it, is one of the small calls with the Southeast Asia head of Uber, Mr. Pradeep Parmeshwaran himself. And next 24 hours, Spencer's was signing up an agreement with Uber, where Uber cars would deliver grocery to the doorsteps of the consumers. And who could have imagined Uber, from transporting people, would agree to transporting groceries? So I think that fell in with a slew of partnerships to consolidate supply chain. More so on the digital side, I think in the last 5 years, across our digital platform and digital footprint, whether it is the web app and other omnichannel products, the number of consumers that we've had in the last 5 years grew by 8 times in a matter of 3 months. So every single metric in the playbook of digital, whether it is active consumers at a daily level or a monthly level, upshot. I think at a larger level, the sheer consumer behavior of consumers coming lesser to physical stores, but buying more, that played a big part in improving the unit economics of the oft-said bleeding or non-profitable e-commerce side of the business. And we scaled up 8 times the e-commerce side of business with a profitable unit economics. And on the third part, we got really breakthrough insights while we deeply connected with consumers. And we said that when we really look at solving the problem of groceries in these testing times, it's okay to have a digital savvy audience, which is like 4-5% of the Indian retail industry. After 2 decades, modern retail is still touching not more than 10-11%. So how do you serve the real India, which is 85-90% of the real retail industry? And how do you reach out to those set of consumers? How do you disrupt that layer? And a breakthrough insight came in where we said that a lot of these senior citizens will never be savvy connecting with consumers, connecting with grocery players on an app and ordering their daily grocery. There's still an apprehension. I can't imagine our previous generation doing that with so comfort. A lot of people have adapted, but there's still a friction. And we leveraged that insight and we said that let's co-partner with something that these senior citizens are really savvy at. And we launched India's first Spencer's Grocery Assistant over WhatsApp, which has access to 400 million consumers. And I think all of us can vouch it, senior citizens, millennials. Everybody is so savvy on WhatsApp that the morning starts with forwarded messages of a lot of our parents. So now senior citizens and everybody, they could really order their groceries at a text message and it gets delivered within hours on same day. So I think, and much before the entire hype on WhatsApp happened in the country, I think just within the very next month, and that product scaled up massively and overshot all the expectations. And then as an organization, I think our biggest strategic hook has been out of store strategy. And as we talk, a single metric I think would define it. Our omni-channel or out of store business, which used to be 7 to 8% of our entire pie, has moved to 24 to 28% as we talk. And I think at Spencer's Retail and Nature's Basket together, our endeavor has to become India's leading omni-channel player. And if I see globally, even the Nikes and Adidas of the world, I don't see any player shooting 10, 11% of omni-channel presence. Of course, it is on the higher side in much adopted geographies in the West. But I think if I look at the emerging economies, a 10 to 11, 15% is the tops. So I think that's been the endeavor to become a globally, truly omni-channel retailer. And I think that sums it up absolutely.
Great. Thank you so much. This is really, really interesting. And I think I'll just, I'm just noting down of some of the interesting initiatives and points and just correlating in my mind as to how we are addressing it. I think it just falls in line very beautifully. Let me go to Jiten and ask him as to how is he navigating and managing the shift towards digital in the apparel industry? How is it different from what Harsh has been speaking about?
So I think, Samir, I think Harsh made a lot of points. And I think one of the important points which he made is about the essential and the non-essential piece. And fortunately, we operate in the category of fashion.
Yeah.
But despite that, we operate in the value fashion segment, which is a sweet spot between the price and the fashion. And our whole TG being family, so we cater to across various. We cater to men's wear, women's wear, kids wear, everything. So our entrenchment with the TG was pretty strong. And what we realized is that this whole Omni journey, which we were talking about, when we've been talking about it for a long time, like all other players in the market. And so this is the only journey, I think, where the challenges are more at the corporate level than at the customer level. You know, I think the customer was leading the tech revolution far higher and earlier, whereas the corporate was trying to figure out how to integrate everything. And I think a lot of work was supposed to be done, which everybody was working on. So I'll just take a step back before I start reacting on the post-pandemic scenario. So initially, almost like 3-4 years back, we came up with this whole data points across industries where ROPO is becoming a very important aspect, where customers are researching online and purchasing offline. So most of the brands started working on, trying to build up the digital footprint. From the digital footprint, it says that we started building up digital as a channel, where we started opening up our own e-com and participating in marketplace and so on. Well, we were doing this as Harsh made a very important point that 3 to 4% of the business was coming from this particular initiative of marketplace and e-com, whereas almost 97% of the business was coming from your brick and mortar space. Now, what happened during pandemic, you realize that what was supposed to be your secondary source of interacting with the customer turned out to be the primary source. And it was a sort of a different scenario where you have, so in our case, we have 1 million customers who shop with us in the brick and mortar space. And we have a 3% business coming from the e-commerce thing. So now the whole transition needs to be done and at a far quicker space. And I think what happened here is that the expedition of the initiatives, which we did in the last 9 months, I think probably would have taken 3-4 years to do that. That's what happened in the last 9 months. So I think one of the quick thing what we did is to move the offline customer to the online, the O2O journey. And we started moving on as much as possible to move the offline customers to online, because stores were not working and they were closed for a long time.
Yep.
The other thing what happened up here is that the phygital space, where a lot of hybrid models started coming in. So before the pandemic, everybody was mapping two models. One is the brick and mortar customer journey and the digital customer journey. Now it's a crisscross which is happening here, where you have a home trial, you have a video call, you have fashionette wheel. So we are going into the apartments and putting up stores. Then you have the WhatsApp cataloging, WhatsApp selling. The GMB became extremely important because of the near store engagement. So all these new journeys, which were all innovation pipeline projects, became the core projects for the organization. And that's where I think we learned a lot. And one thing very important which came up is that if your brand is able to pull and if it has a traction, then the customer is willing to wait for you to reach him. And that's what happened when we actually started going into the apartments. We realized that almost 70-80% of our business in the apartments are coming from our loyal customer. So we started mapping that sales to our loyalty base, and we realized that these are the same people who are actually buying from us and now have started, and the same guys then. So just to give you an idea, in the last 2 years, we had around 40,000 odd people who actually shopped both online and offline. Whereas in this last 9 months, we were able to get this number to around 2.5 or 3 lakh customers who are shopping online and offline both. Now it sounds less, but the fact of the matter is that the average bill value has gone up. It's a complete new journey. And it was not only a change for the brands, it was change for the industry. So just to give you some data, that the largest sale of e-commerce during the pandemic period was from kids wear. And kids wear is not a category which sells on e-commerce. Kids e-commerce is majorly driven by Western wear. If you take the largest players like Myntra or even Amazon, women's wear is what leads the consumption, whereas kids wear became the foray in terms of consuming the e-commerce consumption. So a lot of changes happened in terms of the industry structure, the internal structuring, and obviously the agility and the innovation piece came in very strongly, where the lines between the departments got merged, and customer came as the center of the conversation. A lot of initiatives were taken, whether it is from a supply chain point of view, whether it is making the online deliveries from the stores, because we had a store staff which was not being employed because the stores were closed. We started utilizing them to deliver the e-commerce deliveries. So this whole merging of the channels happened, and in true sense, we were able to see a omni, emergence in the fastest possible way. That's what I would say.
Yeah, thanks, Jitin. I think you raised very, very interesting points, and I think you started off with a very interesting comment in which you mentioned that it was not the consumer but the organizations and the culture and the readiness which was an impediment in this journey. And I think that's a very brilliant point, because that's what we usually see in the businesses today, that it is the lethargy and the resistance to change within an organization which is usually the barrier for transformation. And I think the other comments around how the concepts of stores have changed or the business models have changed, the category shifts that we're seeing, I think they're all very, very, very relevant and very important parameters, the way organizations are now beginning to look at it. And I think there's nothing better than a real urgency around the market to precipitate these transformations. I think that is what has happened. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Before I go to Riddhi, I want to just catch hold of Smarth's idea, because that's a very different perspective, I'm sure, because it's coming from a brand's perspective. So as head of e-commerce for Dabur, how are you engaging with your customers and managing it from a filter of a brand and a CPG?
So thanks, Samir. Retail, I'll just start with retail and then I'll come to consumers. And because we all are serving consumers, and I think without retail it cannot happen. So what I recently read, very interesting, line in McKinsey report, retail is becoming an infinite game. So, if you look at players like Amazon, Flipkart, or even, offline players like, Reliance or JioMart, they're not here to stay in the business. They are here to perpetuate the existing game. They are here to change and challenge the existing ecosystem. They are here to repivot the status quo. That's the game that is being played in the market. That's one. And that's where we all saw a new term coined as, phygital. We all are using that. Second, very, very interestingly, we all have to take a pause and understand how the e-commerce industry and how consumers are evolving. E-commerce, almost 3 years back, I joined Dabur India. 3 years back, we were just even less than 1% e-com salience. We were selling same set of brands, etc. And consumers were only coming to buy a specific set of niche requirements when they used to come, they used to buy and exit. That was the plain vanilla model. In last 2 to 3 years of this journey, and specifically because of pandemic hitting in, we saw a major fillip in e-commerce business and a leapfrog growth, which we could have achieved in next 2 to 3 years. Why it is happening and what is there for all sort of all stakeholders, it's very important to understand that as well. So I think the first and the most consumer is the king. We all know that. So what is there for consumer and how consumers are pegged in the Indian industry? Consumers are heterogeneous for sure. That's one component. Second, they are aspirational for sure. And specifically with T2, T3, segment coming into perspective, they are far more aspirational. Hence premiumization is the secular trend. That's another piece. And, looking at the consumer, there will be, I believe, down the line, I even read a question from panelists. I just straight away answer that. Down the line after 2 to 3 years, there will be different ecosystems for consumers. Those will be consumption ecosystems that would play. That's one. Second is what is there for platforms. Someone touched base on the point of profitability. So if we study a profit because more on a brand side, we all have to we sharply study the business model, whether that's feasible or not, where there's a profitability, whether that would sustain or not, and hence we just press the throttle to invest more behind that particular channel. E-commerce is certainly we are looking at it as a sort of a channel which would expand even further in next 2 to 3 years down the line. It contributes 6% of our trade, and we are doubling the business year on year. So what is there for platform? If you study a platform P&L like Amazon, take an example of Flipkart. So 10 to 12% of the cost that they spend usually go in logistics, shipping from point A to point B, even higher in some specific cases when they ship a single standalone product. 18 to 20% even in specialty platform, it even goes up, goes into new customer acquisition. Almost 10 to 12% again is the operational cost. All put together, ballpark 50%. No business, and specifically stuff that we sell, can contribute 50% of the profitability in the business. Now, when we look at the modern trade P&L, sort of a store like Big Bazaar or Reliance of the world, they spend almost 1 to 2% of their cost goes into customer acquisition. 10-12% is running the store cost. So hence net is 15% at max. So I think this would be a marriage made in heaven, wherein a local kirana guy or a modern trade outlet would come and aid the Amazons and all the e-platforms of the world. Third is what is there for industry. What is the merit for brand like us? If you study and I'll just give you some numbers that would put this to life. If you study the per capita FMCG consumption of Indian consumer, it's still pretty low. It's just $30. Leave developed countries. If you study, developing countries, like if I compare with Indonesia is 2x of us. China is 4x of us. Philippines is 5x of us. So hence there's a huge headroom present in the marketplace to convert a consumer for higher order benefit. That's something which we also sharply track, where we can convert and make a consumer evolve into and upgrade them to a better category, to a better benefit. Toothpaste as a category, surf as a category, premium surf is just 10-12% of the category. Toothpaste is 99% penetrated category. A flagship brand, Red toothpaste, is still 12-13% of the business. So we see this as an opportunity when emerging premiumization, aspirational consumers would come. So that's a benefit for us. Last but not the least, very importantly, we all have to understand what is there for the retailer. I think because because of the pandemic and because of the essentials coming into perspective, the sheer gap between the Bharat and India is reducing, and hence essential element is kicking in. So now if we study a local humble kirana outlet guy, the major constraint they face is there are two constraints. One is space and second is money for them when they operate their business through an outlet. And we all have to take them into confidence if we have to make omni-channel into existence. Half of the assortment that they currently sell, I had visited multiple outlets in metros and even tier 2, tier 3 sort of a segments. Half of the assortment that they keep is junk. A smart salesman would go there, give him some incremental trade scheme, and put the stuff that is not required.
So on the assortments angle, and I just want to bring you back to the first point I just picked up. The first thing which you spoke about was on consumption ecosystems. Just tell our viewers a little bit about what do you mean by consumption ecosystems, and how do you see that progressing down the line?
Absolutely. So how we are witnessing is a consumer that is coming to Amazon will not become a play initially. Almost 3 years back, it was a more of a electronics play. They were largely focusing on mobile phones, computer, laptops, etc. High value, particularly orders that we were clocking because of the profitability perspective. Now that's what we have seen in US, that's what we have seen in European markets. These platforms cannot stand alone only sell CPG products or simply electronic products or any sort of a product. They have to enter, and that's what is happening. Now they have got a payment gateway. Now they will sell insurance. I'll not be surprised, after 2-3 years, if they start selling cars online. And hence there would be one app for me, and hence there would be one platform for me, and that marriage would make it very, very easy for us and a seamless consumer for customer experience. So that's something that is happening, and that's what I meant by yeah.
Okay, no, that's interesting, and I think I can just add on to that. That's I'm also seeing that across our customers, some of the larger conglomerates that we work with, where many of them are trying to build this ecosystem where they can capture multiple touch points across the consumer journey, whether it is purchase or lifestyle. So very, very interesting points. Thanks, Samarth. And apart from the consumption ecosystem, I completely understand what you're trying to say with respect to building operational efficiencies. E-commerce business is still not, unfortunately today, people have not yet found the balance to figure out as to how to make money out of it. I'm sure some of us have, but many of us are still struggling on that. And that's the big opportunity, and because that has a direct implication with respect to how the business models will need to evolve. How do we look at metrics? How do we look at measures of success for a business? And what is the customer lifetime value or a customer experience relate to? So some of the things, I think one thing I will pick your brains later is the collaboration between brands and retailers. And I think I'm very interested in that topic, and I will come back to that later.
Sure.
Sometime. So please hold on to that. Thanks, Samarth. So Riddhi, I finally come to you, and the reason I kept you at the last in this first question discussion, because I was very interested to see as to how you are seeing all these things from a technology partner perspective as we go and talk to customers from a digital strategy. Are you looking at any specific integrations in the market? Do you see any trends? How do you see people navigating this landscape?
So thank you, Samir. And I actually am glad that you took me last, because I would have to admit that there's a lot that's already covered between the three gentlemen. The only thing that puts me in a unique space is the fact that, yes, we're a technology partner to all such retailers globally, right? And when I hear the word digital, it just takes me back to a few years that we've already been, talking to our customers globally in the retail space, and actually now in a much larger space as well in my role. But to going back and saying, what does digital really mean? And the whole debate and the reason why we're here today is to go back and understand, are there ever going to be a retail store, or is it going to be all e-commerce, or what's going to be the future, right? And the imperative question that you asked, Samir, is a measurement of success. We all know that omni-channel retail is a strategy where each channel works together, by unifying sales and marketing to create a seamless shopping experience. It's regardless of which area the customer may just touch you on. A true omni-channel experience would only mean that we're incorporating servicing as well as after sales, right? So it's not just providing to the customer, but it's after providing to the customer in this area, in this space right now, pre or post pandemic. I would like to put it both ways. Is that the capability of being able to give the right customer experience, right? Ecosystems have been spoken about, and I love the thought behind that. In saying where our economists have gone back and said, are there going to be new outlets, or are we ever going to be confined in the digital space? And as a marketeer that I have been, right, and digital marketing for me started much earlier before this tug of war. But for us, it was always creating that omni-channel experience, which means that where a customer is going to be splitting that amount of time, money is between brick and mortar as well as e-commerce, right? The popularity of omni-channel shopping continues to soar. There is no question or there's no doubt on that. However, it's essential for brands to combine their efforts today, right? Across all touch points when I say that. So from an omni-channel strategy perspective, an average, what it takes, there are approximately 7 to 8 touch points that we've discovered whilst talking to all the retailers that we interact with, either because they're our current customers or we're reaching out to them, wanting to give them solutions. We've realized that for us to serve a customer, right, touch points include being online, being in store, being on email, being in the social media space, and each of them playing that important role for them, right? The idea of being able to give them the same experience, irrespective of which journey and which part of the path to purchase journey they are in, is what's imperative. I would say that consumers today are choosing, and this is one of the, I did hear, I think one of the gentlemen picked up this statement, and I agree with it, that consumers today are choosing convenience over anything else, right? We've realized, and we've all gone through the ordeal basis the pandemic, and we've all unearthed different ways of inconvenience. So today my consumer is actually talking about convenience for them at a stage where they're saying, if I'm going to be not just getting something faster, but much more easy for me to search, much more easier for me to go back and discover, and of course at a good price, I would definitely go with that, right? We used to always go back and say that brand loyalties are imperative and we should stake, and we're wanting more and more customers to be the loyalists. But what's important is that the products that they're buying, right? How easy is it for them, and what's been their experience being in store versus being online? Has that convenience been digitally transformed for them, right? And here is that word transformation, which has been very abusive of late. Digital and transformation, both of them have been in my world, is that it just does not refer to an online e-commerce strategies or activities, right? The art of digital transformation sees innovative digitizing technology, and it's implementing it across the entire business, right? So from the operational processes to the mindset towards marketing those strategies, towards allowing customers to shop conveniently, it's this entire spectrum. I would want to quote that, for example, Amazon, they're in cloud, and their business model move was basically being on cloud. But the fact that they realize that the customers do have the need of touch and feel and wanting to know how the product really is, they had to go into a store model, right? While they went on the store model, it was a cashierless Amazon Go stores. So what they did was they leveraged technology to provide that convenience and experience to the customers that was seen online. And what better way of doing this, right? So the nature of omni-channel shopping, or the behavior, is completely going to be transformative. It was transformative earlier. Now we're forced into being in that space. And the faster we are, the better it is. So there's going to be a lot of different touch points now. We're going to discover more and here is my second point, that my segmentation of audience and my behavior of reading them has changed, right? I would earlier probably target a tier 1 or a tier 2 cities, or probably the cosmopolitans, given the fact that we would want all of them to be available and probably see our apps, download them, use them. But now, because of the whole, and I'm sure you've read Digital Nation as well, right? Which is written by our Tata Group CEO. The power of internet that has reached the rural or the urban India has completely transformed the way we ourselves are operating. And that's irrespective of whether it's going to be in the retail store or in the experience, right? The BOPUS method, and that's what I say, like buy online, pick in store, buy online, or drop it in the store, or browsing the products in the store, combination of offers, being able to personalize the entire message. Everything has evolved, and this has evolved because my consumer that I have learned about, discovered because of more and more people coming online, has taught me to change and be more innovative in our technology and more innovative in our experience to reaching out to them, right? So we're wanting to drive all of these prospects to websites, to our applications, with the intention that I'm able to capture those loyalists even today. This shift in, sorry, go ahead.
No, please carry on. Finish your thought.
No, so I was just saying that this shift in consumer behavior is not just now, but it's been in the recent years.
Yes.
And what we really need to understand is that the best-in-class customer experience is what's going to drive this entire omnichannel strategy.
Absolutely. And I think, I was smiling as this discussion is happening, because I was in a panel before and somebody pointed out to me that, let's not talk about omnichannel, let's talk about omni-consumer. And let's, wipe away the term completely and just, move on to that, because I think historically we have been very, very, store-centric operations. So, how do we change ourselves to become more customer-centric? It's a very broad, open-ended statement. It is not an easy fix. I think I just want to, and I'm seeing a question coming up, and which is also related to this, because the biggest challenge that most of the retailers are also facing is profitability, operational efficiency. How do they manage the businesses? So I see on the panel, I've got a few people who are running e-commerce, and somebody who's running both stuff. And I think the question, let me just ask the question which has come on the chat group. How are you really managing the pricing structures? How are you doing, price optimization across storefronts? And what is the logic that you use to drive profitability across your different stores in the business? Harsh, do you want to take that question?
Absolutely, Samir. So I'll take that question. And since I've been asked to answer that question, let me give you the entire playbook. Yeah. So I would rather be adding a better value to that answer. So I think all the four big questions, because since he's focused on pricing, I think the reason that question has essentially come in, because I'm sure, Samir, all the marketers around the globe will relate to it, because we've been taught classical and traditional marketing. And with due regards, I think we all have been, we have all grown in the pedigree of the 4 Ps, right? And here's the thing, and 2 things about digital transformation. I think the worst part about digital transformation is it is talked often and less executed. So that's the worst part about it. Second, the worst part about digital, phygital, omnichannel is everybody has got great examples, and mostly it's a $1 billion company, now a $1 trillion company, but it's less at home or in your own organization. So I think these are the 2 worst parts. And I'll again tell you why these 2 are correlated, because I think we need to consciously, as industry professionals, unlearn the 4 Ps that we've learned so far, right? And that would possibly be the answer to the question. I think whenever we think about a business, a brand, we think about a product and service, because that was the first P we understood, right? We think of a product and we start jumping into what the core value proposition is, things like that, right? The second is pricing, right? That's what, right? Place and promotion. But look at it deeply, and the 4 Ps of classical marketing have been truly disrupted, and there is no notion of product. And in fact, if I had to address and give one big advice to the entrepreneurs or current leaders, I would say, don't think product, don't think service. The only thing that you should think about is platform, right? Think about Kodak being the best company in imaging, right? Now, everybody has heard that story. They had at hand the biggest digital imaging device in the boardroom. But now when I think which is the biggest imaging company, you think hard, it's not a product company. It's called Instagram. So they don't produce one of the pictures, but they've got the biggest repository of pictures, and they are monetizing it like nobody's business. Again, platform as a strategy has replaced the notion of product, which means that no matter which business or brand you're trying to build it, and that has got a great genesis, because I also mentioned myself that it's not about quoting examples, it's also about practicing. So at Spencer's, it has become one of our core strategies where we call it store as a platform, or platform as a strategy, where we truly believe that store is a multi-sided platform where it's not just about consumers coming into the store. There is a strong platform where store travels to the consumers, right? How we do that? Just some examples so that we don't get into too much depth is when you think about the acquisition of Amazon of a whole foods, right? The Amazon Go stores example we heard, or the 64 Homa stores of Alibaba, the cashless. I think that's a great example of phygital. But I think at the heart of it is a platform strategy. Second, coming to pricing, since that was the question, how do you manage it in an omni-channel framework? I think, guys, people who have been leaders, who've been in retail, have heard of something called DMDC, which is like.
I think I lost you, Harsh.
Different model.
Still there?
Different channel, right? I think they used to, there would used to be a different pricing for e-commerce, for modern retail and retailers, and that happened for years. He said that there has to be parity. But I think the key to solving omnichannel pricing is, again, this notion of pricing gets replaced by personalization, which means, and you have to understand it really from a consumer standpoint, it's a consumer-centric notion, is that the job of a true marketer is to make sure that he converts the consumer at that point in time. And retail, trust me, it's such a simple business. We have to either learn it from a housewife, or we have to learn it from a kirana, and no management school really helps you. So when you go to understand a business from a kirana guy, he tells you what's your price. He says that if the guy is willing to pay 10 rupees, the pricing is 10. If he's willing to pay 8, and I would still end up making a sale and turn over my inventory, the pricing is 8. So what is exactly eventually talking about is personalization. And you look at most platforms around us, how they're evolving, the pricing has become completely personalized, which means it really depends at which point in time the consumer is in his journey, and the journeys have become truly omnichannel and more complex. And if he's closer to the end of part of the funnel, he may have a different pricing shown to the same kind of a guy. So I think pricing has become more personalized. A simple example would be, in very simple terms, how do we solve pricing in omnichannel grocery, which is the most difficult, is that no matter from where you order your groceries from, through the app or the website or the physical store, if you're ordering it from a particular pin code, you will see a similar pricing. It may be a very personalized pricing, only relevant to you, because we've suddenly found that our predictive algorithm shows that you're a great loyal customer and you've been buying it for the 4th time. We want to nudge you for a high repeat percentage. We'll give you a very specialized pricing. So it's more programmatic, but I think the outcome is personalized. I think that was the answer to pricing. In terms of technology, I think in today's day and age, it's very easy, fairly easy to execute what I just said. The other 2 P's I'll still give you, since I promised to give you the entire playbook, is more than promotion, right? Which is basically the key lever in marketing, saying that if things are not selling, start putting everything in promotion, start discounting. I think more than promotion, it has become more important that more than promotion, the intent is to, and then in digital marketing, a lot of guys knows, it's about having a higher customer lifetime value, right? So you don't look at making that sale there and then, you look at a higher motive of saying that you want to increase the customer lifetime value over a period of time, and that if it entails a promotion at this point in time, so be it. And the last P, essentially, which replaces the notion of saying, our 4th P is replacing the word place with phygital, which means that you can't, as a business in current day and age, say that I'll start a business and it would be a series of stores. I'll start a business and it would only be a web presence, right? The consumers are omnichannel. And hence that notion of place that my business would have be hinged in a certain sense of presence is completely disrupted. The new age brands are completely phygital, which means that it is inevitable and you have to be present everywhere, and everywhere the consumer wants to find you. And that is the foundation of a sustainable business. So I think it's a way of seeing the traditional 4 Ps, looking at it the way it has disrupted, unlearning that and picking up the 4 new things. And once you look at phygital personalization, the ability to personalize, and from that perspective, the another pivot is the ability for organizations to pivot. And not a better time to say this than now, when we've been, after the 12 months, we've seen biggest Fortune 500 companies, the biggest non-essentials in lifestyles, etc., being pushed to the corners to say that how do we start selling non-essentials, right? And that's the ability of an organization to pivot, right? Which means that how agile you are to be able to keep consistently disrupting your innovation cycle towards a newer business model, towards a newer revenue model. And I think those 4 pieces together are redefining the way we see classical marketing and the way we envisage the businesses of future. And maybe we could very easily and comfortably dovetail into the future of retail.
Great, thanks, Harsh. And I think you raised some very good points, and a great segue into some of the stuff that I wanted to ask next, which was on personalization. But I think the just to add on to the answer you gave, and to the gentleman who asked the question on economics and pricing, there is no one answer to this question. It is not just doing a dynamic pricing or price optimization or promotion optimization. I think you have to look at the whole operational efficiency piece. You have to look at store transformation. You have to look at how do you really measure profitability in the retail ecosystem. Is it measured by stores performance, or is it measured by the whole ecosystem and the journey and the platforms like Harsh is talking about? I think, I go back to the first comment which was made, that I think it was. I remember Jiten who said it was the organizational impediments which are creating a problem in profitability and transition, rather than the actual marketing scenarios. But truly, yes, logistics is still a challenge, a huge challenge. And I think what I'm seeing, just to add on to some of the comments, that I think we are fundamentally at a stage from a digital maturity in majority of the organizations where they are doing the initial foundational elements. And I think we have not yet reached at the optimization stage where you are actually beginning to optimize and get better pricing. But, it's happening very fast. Coming back to personalization, favorite topic of mine. And, as many of you would agree with me, that everybody is looking at it. Everybody wants you to really predict what the customer is going to do next and proactively engage and manage all the experiences and expectations. So how are we, handling this piece in your respective organizations? This is a very, very critical stuff, because without personalization, you cannot do so many of the things that we were all talking about. Let me ask this question first to Jiten. Let me go back to you. In the fashion world, how are you personalizing the apparel journey and the customer experiences?
Yeah, Samir. So, actually, it's very interesting conversation. I just want to make one point on that pricing piece, because I was tempted to add there.
Please.
Is that I think the brands and the organizations have to take a step back, because a lot of people who actually jumped the bandwagon, I'm talking about brands which are strong in the B&M space. I'm not talking about startup brands. I'm not talking about, brands who are launching on online only. Their journey, their profitability, their pricing is still well in control. It is a challenge when the businesses are developed on both the sides. And I can tell you, based on my past experiences, that a lot of brands entered digital more from a stock clearance point of view. And the whole proposition on e-commerce was about service and pricing. And there was no brand building which took place for the first 5 years, 7 years in this whole thing. So then you are forced to align to the requirement of the mandate of the industry, and that's where the challenge actually happened. And then you see some smart retailers over the time, they have created separate lines for e-commerce and separate range for e-commerce where they have managed the pricing. But the fact of the matter is that, as you rightly said, the omni customer vis-a-vis omni channel, the omni customer now sees it through. Hence, it becomes extremely critical for the brands. I know a lot of brands who do a end of season sale in a different duration during the online space vis-a-vis in the offline space. So once the offline is done, then the stocks get transferred to online, because online is treated more as a disposition mechanism, And that's, I think, a challenge, mindset challenge, which I think people will have to correct, because the customer will see it through. Unless you have different model numbers, you have something really different to order, or value add, then that's a different thing. Or if you are pushing a basket size, then you are giving a discount, which is a different thing. So you are building up a scale there, because in one of the biggest challenge for online is to increase the basket size and to bring in the cost of acquisition down, because your your convert to the cart or the organic is in single digits, whereas most of your performance marketing is what is taking away a lot of business money. So the fact is that profitability will only come when you're able to get your loyal customer on both the channels. So you reduce your cost of acquisition. Your profitability in your BNM will always be higher vis-a-vis an online, but your
Yes.
BNM will not be able to get you the new customer acquisition. You know, so a lot of brands went to online thinking that the secondary TG is going to come in the online space, the more younger TG, whereas my core TG will continue to be in my channel. It's now differentiated completely, where your core TG has gone to the e-commerce space. And now that's the difficulty, that how do you ensure that seamless journey across the channels become more and more transparent, and there is an accountability from the brand point of view. So coming
Absolutely.
to the personalization piece, see, I think the journey started with segmentation. So as I told you, we have 10 million loyal customer base. And the first round of segmentation, which started with a lot of players, it came up with the point that, okay, let's look at the recency, frequency, and the monetary aspect of it. That who is your customer, who is contributing the highest, how many times she or he is shopping with you. And that's where we started saying, okay, this is your most loyal customer. So we have to talk to them in a separate way. And the separate way would be that we are doing a preview for them during season launch, or preview for them, or giving them an access to buy a product range before it is open to the others. And we started treating them in a more privileged form. That's the first form of personalization which took place. Then came in the whole social footprint, the social CRM aspect, where we said that, okay, let us know the customer better and let's try to create cohorts. And that's where the second round of personalization came in, when we said, okay, oh, this is your male 24 to 34, and we added the aspect that, okay, within the male there is a adventure group, and then there is a music loving group, and then there is a family value group or finance related group, and how can we make them more personalized by mapping products to their requirements. And that's where the CRM, social CRM came. Now we are in the phase where we are saying that it's a segment of one, and that's where the larger conversation is. So today, it's not about telling you what all I have. So today, let's say if Samir goes and shops in my store, and if he buys a track pant, or if he buys a chino, I need to stimulate you by saying, okay, there is a product which goes with this thing, and you can go and buy online. And that's where the next level of personalization, so that Samir feels that someone is really knowing what I'm looking forward to, and I'm adding value to the conversation. And in this journey, you're actually merging your offline customer to online. Instead of giving a coupon saying get 10% off when you shop online, this is a far better journey, though it takes time in this piece, because you're actually doing a good job. So we are always having this conversation that let's not transform the profitable customer to a discount customer. So we need a profitability across the chain. And how do you get profitability is by adding value to the customer and not by discounting your own products. So that's something which we have started. The other challenge what is happening right now is that, as we spoke about, multiple journeys getting created from the customer now, whether it is from a store to online, or the online customer going and dropping the product offline. There is an endless aisle which has got created. There is a WhatsApp journey. There is a green pause journey, where we are triggering a consumer offer based on the immediate purchase of the customer. Now, at any point of time, an average customer would be communicated 2 to 3 things, within the same journey. Now, how do we synergize this whole piece? And that's where the CDP initiative, is being initiated at a lot of brands, because that's becoming more and more relevant. Otherwise, in isolation, every offer is based on a profitability, But when you look at the totality, you'll realize you actually end up giving more discounts to the customer. So what happens in most of the cases, if you promote an offer, you put a cost benefit analysis, and every offer is signed based on bottom line. But the fact of the matter is that the same customer has got 3 to 4 offers during the same journey. And when you merge all of them, you'll realize that it's not making sense to give so much of discount. And the customer never asked for it, but every channel wants to be more competitive than the other channel. And that's the larger challenge, you know. So today the conversation is that how do I get my WhatsApp opt-in vis-a-vis how do I increase my redemption on the green pause? How do I increase my conversion at the store? So each bucket is becoming and shouting for itself and asking for a communication and an offer. And that's where the challenge is happening. It's not that the customer is saying, I will shop from green pause if you give me a better discount. So that's not the requirement.
Understand. So I think it's very interesting. You raised a few very interesting points, and I think obviously it starts from segmentation, and you know, the way I am also hearing from the market is basically getting the visibility across your consumers and shoppers. And I think once you have the visibility, then you look at how do I really, you know, give him what he or she is looking for. So let me shift to Riddhi and, you know, ask her, are you seeing similar, what kind of initiatives are you seeing from customers when you are going and talking to them from a personalization perspective? Do you see a trend coming there? You know, where are customers today?
Awesome. So I was intrigued by what Jitain had to share with me, and I'll tell you why, right? Our challenges is slightly different. It's very easy to say that today personalization is a prerequisite, right? I mean, it's needed because we're all there. We are moving either in a retail store or like in present store, or we're being digital. But the fact that the availability of data for both of them, marrying them together to then be able to give you an omni-channel personalized experience is the hardest task that I have personally seen, right? And I'll tell you why. Data is there, but it's completely fragmented. It's in different systems, it's in different methodologies, and I can actually go back to saying something as basic as this, that it's in somebody's Excel sheet on a computer versus somebody in a Kirana store noting it down as a log and coming it out as an experience, right? All of them, if we had to tie it back to then actually give a consumer the so-called perfect personalized experience, is a dream come true for me, right? I can never commit to that. Whenever a retailer comes to me as a technology partner and saying, can you do that? And I'm like, yes, but we can show you. The art of possibility is humongous, but the practicality of this is, almost to zero, because both of them are not going to match, unfortunately. There are very few retailers, and I have to be honest on this, in investing in the infrastructure, in technology, in wanting to map all of this. And not just from an infrastructure and technology, but also the change of mindset, right? The fact that when we're talking to a lot of retailers and we're looking at them and finding the perfect combination of personalized experience versus pricing versus what is it that we can give in addition to our customers, given all our competitions also in the same space. They're everywhere where we are. So my competition is almost everybody, but I'm also wanting to be a differentiator. How do I do that, right? And for me, I think for us, it goes in a phased-wise manner. The way we've looked at it is the foremost understand when you're looking at your target audience, and that's beautifully said by Jitain, right? Target audience has changed, and we said that earlier as well. Whom are you really targeting? And what is it that you want to give to them, right? The definition of personalized experience is very important for every retailer. It can be different for different customers and different for different retailers. That's my personal 2P on this, right? So, sorry.
Yeah, please carry on. No, I was just smiling as you were saying, because, you know, I really love the fact that you brought out the elephant in the room, that it is very difficult to manage the data silos in the organization. It is really a dream come true, and which is where most of the organizations are today, even though our aspirations are much ahead of where we are in the current scenario. Yes,
right. So yeah, and we've got a lot of great sophisticated marketing tools, right? we sneeze and we have the best product teams available. And each one of them have something new to talk about personalization, how they can go back and reach out to the consumers that you didn't even know about, or they came onto your website, or they came onto a particular channel, which you're discovering more and more about them. You're trying to track them. You're still trying to be mindful about your data security or your privacy constraints and still be able to give them the so-called experience. Uh, all of that sophistication is possible, but what's important to know is how are we going to make use of it? And at the end of the day, I need to go back and create that entire circle, right? Or close that circle, if I have to say. I can be a retailer and I can be giving you the moon, but my customer is still not happy. So for me, my customer satisfaction, that measurement of success, when you started off this conversation, right, and that's hit me very closely to my heart, because at the end of the day, we forget to realize that we can do everything on this world, but the basic measurement of success is where the customer is happy. And has that been ever tapped on to go back and say, are all my criteria, my KPIs, my SLAs, are they, I mean, they can be all in the green, but I still don't have the database. I still may not have the people who may want to come back and shop with me, and they would just snap at a finger because of one poor experience. So for me, I think it's a combination of all of this from a personalization perspective.
So I think, I'm cognizant of the time, but I've got 14 more minutes left, and I want to also ask 2-3 other very interesting questions. I think on the topic of personalization, I'll just summarize, what you just mentioned, and I think which is a common fact that I also see in the market today, that, although people are trying to look at segmentation and how to target the consumers and shoppers, I think it is the real-time visibility across the purchase journey, which is the biggest problem today. And although the data is available, but putting it all together into a common retail data model is what is the biggest challenge. And I think to build that model, there are various steps to it. And starting from whether you start from a MDM or a CDP or multiple other technologies and infrastructure. One question I'll just ask the panel, and please feel free to just decide who wants to answer this. And this is on AI and AI ML use cases in retail. And I think a lot has been said and a lot is being said about artificial intelligence in retail. In your organizations, quickly, in a quick answer, if you can tell me, where are you prioritizing? Do you see implementing AI use cases in retail in your organizations, or are you still building foundational elements and foundational use cases? Anyone, please feel free to answer.
Sure, Samir, I'll answer this. Specifically in our organization, from a technology perspective, we see technology, coming and disrupting two specific areas. One is resource optimization, automate repetitive roles, removing a standalone person to specific tasks which are redundant, repetitive, and putting in AI into perspective and having some sharper vision with that. Second is certainly from a profit optimization piece. We are also looking this so that we can reduce the cost with the AI integration, and secondly we can increase the revenue piece. So specifically to a sales guy who is going into the marketplace, typical traditional trade sales guy, giving them their buddy handheld device and taking order on POS, and that buddy would intimate and inform that particular executive that this is something, hey, you haven't sold it since so long, and this retailer, there's a requirement in the marketplace, you can go and implement that. So certainly
more towards operational efficiencies and more towards like RPA kind of angle. I understand. And I think the challenge that we see also today in the market is, although everybody wants to do the recommendations and demand AI and all the cool stuff which we can do, but unless you build the foundational elements, as Riddhi was also talking about, and the data platforms, it is virtually impossible to go on to higher order use cases, which is linked to optimization, the demand AI, pricing AI, or recommendations and so on and so forth. But I think it is possible. And even when we do the basic customer 360 and visibility, there is enough which can be done today in the market to really improve the purchase journey. Let me move on to the next topic before we start to wrap up the conversation. I think this is on the store transformation. I hear this terminology quite often in the market, stores of the future. And so let me just ask quickly, some of you or each of you as to what is your interpretation of stores of the future and where are you today? Whether you look at Jiten from your perspective in the apparel industry or Harsh from a grocery side.
I'll take that up, Samir, to start with.
Please.
Sure. So I think let me depart here from a very grocery standpoint, because we've talked about it, and I think there are enough examples around. But in fact, let me take the example, or it's actually a case study of my previous employer, which is DLF, and I think it's a great moment to share that example. DLF happens to be one of the platinum sponsors of today's session, so I think it's a great in time. So Samir, exactly the vision that you are talking about, which has been off talk for the last 1 decade. Where does the future of retail lie, right? And if you really look at it, out of the $750 billion of the retail industry in India, which is slated to grow to $1.3 trillion, 4 to 5% is e-commerce, right? And with modern retail of last 2 decades is 10 to 11%, the Walmarts, the Reliance Distributors, the Big Bazaars of the world, including Spencer's. The bigger question is what essentially disrupts the 90% of retail, right? And what is that capability? What is that platform? And platform is just a means to that end, but what's that essential capability that you would develop in terms of the entire ecosystem that would help you leverage, right? We've seen great examples of disruption happening around, whether it's the advent of marketplace model. I think the Taobao is a great example in China, and there are so on and so forth. And more so, I think on the West side, you all get inspired by the idea. So let me quote this case study and I remember 3 years before, Samir, in 2017, and we were not just at this big question that what is the future of retail and how do we really see it in execution, but it should also cover a whole lot of things we just talked about. How about being at the cusp of AI, ML, the epitome of personalization and so on and so forth. So here's what we did, right? I understand, and I also realized the big elephant in the room saying that how do you start your digital transformation journey? Because one big question is, what do I do with my legacy systems, right? Where do I start? Do I start from the beginning? And the moment I start talking about recreating it, I think the unit economics never fits it, right? And hence, things have always moved to later plans. So we started with simple questions saying that in order to become very smart for consumers, whether it is very personalized, etc., you have to become the future of retail. Let's look at who's very smart, and that's a compliment I'm coming back to you, Samir. So we said that Google is smart, right? Then how is Google smart? Because you know what? Google knows everything about us. So we started, what does Google know and what is really relevant to our consumers? Now, DLF shopping malls, I mean, they're lead sponsored, so we can have their logo too, my previous employer, but they're like one of the biggest retail marketplaces in the country, around $3.5–4 billion of retail marketplace, the biggest mall in the country, Mall of India, so on and so forth. All of that happens to be in the portfolio. But in the context of the consumer, imagine a lady going to that retail therapy of a mall. If you've been to Delhi NCR, like a Promenade or a Chanakya or an Emporio, and that's the epitome of retail therapy that a normal consumer wants, right? The best experience somebody would have had is possibly Dubai Mall, Simon or Westfield. So we said that in order to know our consumer, right, our inspiration lies from Google because Google knows everything about it. But then we said that how much does Google know about? So let's say there's a consumer walking into a shopping mall. Can Google tell us, is he in front of Zara right now? Because that's a great contextual information. And if I know that there is a lady who's in front of Starbucks, you can possibly try and solve for the kind of experiences. But when we ask Google, Google tells right now which is the building that Samir is in. But I went ahead and said, no, I want to know which room in his house Samir is in. But that's like 1 meter of approximation. And Google does 20 meters, which is, right, which is GPS. So how do you get 1 meters of approximation of data knowledge? So here's we started, and I'll keep it quick in 3 big steps.
I've got 6 minutes, so you'll have to keep a short answer.
So we deployed microprocessors, Sameer, across 150,000 square feet of retail marketplace, in getting to a less than 1%, less than 1 centimeter approximation, which basically means as a lady goes to a Zara and a Starbucks and a PVR, you're able to see in real-time dashboards of how much time that is spent, and in 1 meter when you're moving from Forever 21 to Marks and Spencer, how's that change happening real time? So you're generating data because by the virtue of Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, every phone gets connected and you are able to get connected with the consumer. So it's not about that journey which we've seen of registering on an Amazon app, but it's an auto connect. And then we built India's first digital app, which is called Lookout, which went on to see like 1 million plus consumers because the app was connected with the microprocessors. And here's the epitome of personalization. And just one example is, imagine this lady going to Zara and spending 15 minutes. And the moment she's coming out of Zara, nobody in her periphery, but it's just that lady gets a notification of a 50% off from Starbucks. Now that's great. She feels really pampered and personalized because a predictive algorithm shows that last time she exhibited such a behavior of browsing lifestyle and happened to be a weekday, she ended up going to Starbucks. While Starbucks is happy to give her 30% off, but the conversion of that campaign is whooping 80-85%. So it's a win-win on both ends. She goes on to spend 15 minutes at Zara, and she, again, while she's coming out, she's surprised because again, the predictive algorithm shows that when two things happened in succession of she's spending 15 minutes at lifestyle and going to a cafe, and it happened to be a weekend, she ended up catching the latest movie. And she gets a 1+1 on PVR, which all the consumers in India get on their credit cards.
I'll just interrupt you there. I understand where you're going with this in terms of the store of the future. But I think let me just bring. Sorry.
In a nutshell, just to give a flavor, Sameer, to all the audiences here, that when you look at and try and address the question, which is the store of the future, I think the key to solving it with this case study is the fact that you have to start with the consumer in the center, right? And leverage the technology and tools around you. A lot of times it could be an AI, it could be an ML, it could be predictive algorithm, it could be a whole use of IoT, or even at the cutting edge of digital. But that's always secondary. I think the biggest elephant in the room is we as marketers and as business builders, we get overwhelmed by technology, saying that possibly this is not a forte, and this is one of the few trillion companies who's possibly disrupting that part of the ecosystem. But I think being consumer-centric comes very original to all of us as Indians. So let me put that way. And we've been one of the most consumer-centric sellers. So I think that's the key to envisaging the store of the future. So let me put it.
Right. So I think what you're saying is, and I don't have too much time left to go to other panelists to answer this question, is start with the consumer in mind and do reverse logistics and see which technologies you can fit into the store environment to make the experience better. And I think what we are seeing in the market is that majority of the retailers today are first connecting the store's environment and putting technologies more from a connectivity rather than going and then bringing some intelligence and ultimately going into the automation that we all relate to with you can walk out the stores and everything will get done automatically. So I've got very few minutes left, so we'll do a rapid fire. We've got 2-3 things that I wanted to cover. So quick in one line or two, maybe these answers. I'm going to ask this question to you. So from a priorities perspective, business continuity, cost savings, growth or innovation, where are you now in your current organization? We can start quickly. Harsh, start with you and then we move on to others quickly. One line answer.
Sameer, business innovation first, business continuity is last. I think that's a passive beyond that stage. And that's about it. I think when you talked about cost savings, it's part and parcel. I think we are more open as an organization towards larger investments for a more disruptive growth cycle. So I think more than cost saving, it's about future investments.
That's 10 sentences though. That's 10 sentences, but I'll let you go. No worries. Jiten, what about you?
It's about growth and innovation, and because the continuity will only come if you have to innovate, and today what you are doing in the past is no more relevant. So obviously growth and innovation.
Good, great. Samarth, what's happening in your organization? How are you looking at the environment today?
Sameer, we are in a heightened phase of innovation. So certainly that is the priority for the organization. And I think if you innovate well in down the line after a few years, saving would certainly come into perspective.
That's great. It's really good to hear from the three gentlemen on the panel on the focus on growth and innovation. And I'm sure Riddhi, you will agree with me that I think we are getting past the stage where most of the retailers were focused on business continuity and cost. And I think people are now beginning to think about how can they really accelerate and move fast and innovate fast to grow in this market. Last question to the panelists, and this is all about your experiences and learnings. And so what has been your key learning in the last 12 months? And what would be your advice in 1 to 2 sentences to our audiences, please? Riddhi, let me start with you.
Okay, so I'm going to be the good student and answer it in actually 2 sentences. It's mundane to go back and say that change is constant. While we say that, it actually happened to us, right? We weren't ready for this change, but we had to adopt to this change. So that's been my learning, more than 2 sentences. But I think the other part is, sorry, your other question was, Sameer?
What would be your advice to our audience or retailers going forward?
I think the advice is going to be keep it simple. Sometimes we overcomplicate the things, and in that space, we forget to address the most important part, which is our customers. So keep it as simple as possible.
Great, thank you so much, Riddhi. Jiten, what would you say?
So I think the biggest learning for us has been that it's about agility and innovation. And the other thing, what we realized, and that is going to be the future, is a frictionless shopping experience. And that's the most critical thing we feel as we go along. And we have to work according to that. And in terms of my advice, I would just say that, top line is vanity, bottom line is sanctity, and cash is the reality. So that's what I think everybody has understood. So that's my advice.
So focus on economics, yeah. Focus on profitability.
Focus on profitability, and it's not about doing everything. I think this whole race of doing everything is a dangerous one. It's about, as you rightly said, doing it, keeping the customer as an omni customer, and ensuring your initiatives are reached to the customer, and not about just creating a large amount of tools getting deployed everywhere.
Fantastic. Harsh?
Okay. So the first one is be consumer obsessed, consumer centric. That's the first and foremost one. Agility is like air. You can't survive without it, so you'll perish. So agility is at the core. And the last one is disruption is reality, right? So you have to accept it and be ready to pivot.
Great. Thanks, Harsh. Smarth, anything from your side for the viewers today and the retailers?
I'll just give a perspective on consumers. I know, today's consumer is deep, not wide. And whenever you're doing research, just distill, conversations from the noise and study it very carefully. And rightly mentioned by Jitin, less is more. Do rightly, have a nimble-footed approach, be agile, study consumer patterns, and then execute.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Smarth. And as I was listening to all of you the last an hour and a half or so, I think so many interesting comments which came out, and the points which I was noting down. I've got 3 pages of notes in front of me, and I haven't yet reached to challenges and what can we do, and dig a little deeper on store transformation and personalization. I think there's a lot happening in the market today, and I'm really thankful to all of you for sharing your experiences and giving us a little bit of a peek into your respective businesses. All of you made very valid points, and I think I'll just add one to whatever you have been making is, I also encourage as you move the retailers, as you move towards digitization, as to how can you leverage technology. Try and leverage technology as much as possible in moving faster, and try and start looking at this not being a store-centric, but a whole retail ecosystem, and start looking at the measurements of success differently. I think from a platform perspective, from an overall business perspective, and that will really change the paradigm in the way we look at omni-channel or omni-consumers. Thank you so much, Dr. Yogesh, Mr. Somani, and others, and Ajay for organizing this and giving me the opportunity to interact with an amazing audience. And thank you, the audience who have joined us today for attending and giving us their time. Thank you so much, Dr. Yogesh. Over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Samirji. Thank you very much for this wonderful session and the way you have moderated. Let me share it with you that PHDCCI, especially the retail committee, is certainly going to bother you for many more occasions in future too.
My pleasure.
This is what at the back we were communicating with Shashwatji and Saurabhji, that the way you have moderated it is so well, and we were very happy to see the meaningful speakers which we have, and I'm sure the audience must have been benefited out of it. Before I request Mr. Saurabh Bansal, our co-chair of the retail committee, to give the formal vote of thanks of this session, may I request Shashwatji, if you have any in one or two sentences about this entire session which we have had, the first session, and your thought on this, and then we will go to Saurabh Bansal for the formal vote of thanks for this session. Over to you, Shashwatji.
Thank you, Yogesh. I think we're running a little bit short on time, so I'm going to keep it very brief. I think the themes we've spoken about are very, very interesting. Thank you to all the speakers for bringing such fantastic points. What some of the points for me that were very, very true that really hit me were the fact that omnichannel is not a challenge for the end consumer, it really is for the organization. Also, some of the other themes that we spoke about the future of what this is going to look like. And when you asked for advice or what has been the most challenging thing, I think something that I can tell from my organization is also the ability to remain agile, accept the disruption is very, very important. And the question that you asked about, I think growth and innovation will drive everything else. We as an organization, obviously we are quite diversified, but for example, in our sanitary ware business, which is 65 years old, how do you really do something growth in innovation there? But the pandemic has forced us to relook at our products, and due to that, it's had a trickle-down effect for our entire organization and for the consumer itself. So I think, and to add to that, I think India is an exciting space. I think we have the capabilities to develop amazing products, amazing channels, and the future is bright for this economy. So thank you, and thank you to all the panelists.
Thank you, Shashwatji. Now I would request Mr. Saurabh Bansal, the co-chairman of our committee, to kindly give the formal vote of thanks for this session. Over to you, Saurabhji.
Thank you, Yogeshji. So I consider it a great privilege to propose a vote of thanks to all the dignitaries who have made today in our second edition session on Retail 360 Degrees, the future of retail, a successful event. We are deeply grateful to all the panelists who have spoken extensively on the conceptual and practical dimensions of seamless adoption of merging offline and online retail. With the consumer shopping behaviors changing during Corona, the purpose of retail store is shifting and the brands are accelerating the omni-channel transformation. Retailers must prioritize both their brick and mortar location and e-commerce option to remain competitive and successful, as consumer looks to utilize both of them. Retailers have struggled to keep up with a major uptick in online shopping and fulfill orders. Those did not make those investment pre-crisis will emerge from this period healthier than ever. As COVID-related restrictions evolve, a consumer's ability to seamlessly engage with the retailer's online and offline shopping experience could be a deciding factor between which retailers make it through to the other side of the pandemic. Brick and mortar traffic and revenue will continue to normalize, but that normalization must be accompanied by a holistic approach that serves the same excellent experience in person and online to ensure the movement towards this goal. For many retailers, omnichannel is about enabling the in-store experience online and vice versa. letting shoppers freely switch channels during their journey. However, the future of retail lies in singular, seamless shopping experience, one that completely encompasses the potential part to purchase and combines relevant data from every touch point. There are many ways to approach online or offline customer experiences and be successful. The change is how to do both at the same time, holistically. Retailers must consider details such as how often and where they will engage with customers, as well as what kind of technology they'll need to enable this experience. Tracing these efforts across the digital environment, call centers and in-store service is an enormous but important undertaking. As retailers build their omni-channel suite, each touchpoint should be mapped to a specific purpose, ideally with the most important shopper engagement taking place in the channel. Retailers have more control over this. Retailers will need to go out of their way to make their stores a destination and also provide convenience by ensuring that the routine elements of shopping trips are painless. A fully connected supply chain and complete seamless shopping experience will be essential to helping shoppers get the most out of their time. Omnichannel retailers should create strong data forward and streamlined process oriented playbooks to look forward to speed, strength, prosperity, and profitability. With thoughtful agility, retailers can capitalize on this time as an opportunity for the future. The landscape of brick and mortar retail is changing, not disappearing, and the industry's most innovative brands and retailers that can offer unique in-store experience combined with omni-channel capabilities will definitely succeed. With these notes, I express my profound thanks to all the panelists for sharing their views with us on a topic of such contemporary relevance. I also express my sincere thanks to the delegates and other esteemed guests who have taken keen interest in the program and have taken time out of the busy schedule to attend this lecture today. I appreciate my sincere thanks to Dr. Yogesh Srivastavaji, Assistant Secretary General, and the entire team at PhD CCI for their hard work and consistent effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Saurabh. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Dhingra, and all the panelists today, Riddhi, Adlaka, Harshvardhan, Jitin, and Samarth Khanna ji. And we are very thankful to you, and we will be in touch with you. As Shasha ji has said, that yes, we are behind the schedule. We will not have any break. We will go to the next session, and that is the final session for this retail refocused realigning your consumer compass. And the moderator in this session would be Dr. Pooja Jain, Director, Jagan Institute of Management Studies. A very inspiring institute, I must say, because I have gone over there and then given some lectures in the past. And Pooja ji, before we request you to take it on, let me give you a brief profile to all the audience about Dr. Pooja Jain, the Director of Jagan Institute of Management, Rohini, a brief profile. She has more than 18 years of experience that includes both academic and corporate, and she is actively involved in teaching, research, and training areas related to consumer behavior, sales management, and rural marketing. And she also has developed multiple cases for classroom teachings, and some of them have been published in journals of repute. And she's passionate to learn and explore new dimensions of marketing. And we feel that today's topic really, fit as far as Dr. Pooja is concerned. And the topic is today, as I have already mentioned, realigning your consumer compass. And the panelist would be in this session Ms. Megha, Business Development Director, L'Oreal. Yes, she has been coming to our programs earlier also. Hi, Megha, how are you? And it's really nice to see, because during pandemics, we have been communicating with her in number of programs. Mr. Sanjay Singhal is the COO, ITC Dairy and Beverages. Mr. Nikhil Maheshwari, Marketing Head, Hindware Appliances. Mr. Ridhikesh Sinha, Head Marketing, Doorstep Group. And before I request Dr. Pooja to take over we have with us our chairman of retail committee, Mr. Shashwat Somani. Mr. Somani, if I can briefly, request you to kindly set the theme for this session. And this session's vote of thanks would be given by a very inspiring young man who is the co-chair of our retail committee, Mr. Krittivas Dalmia, at the end. So it goes to Mr. Somani to please set the theme for this session. Over to you, Mr. Somani.
Thank you. Welcome all. Good afternoon to everyone. On behalf of the PhD Chamber of Commerce, I'm honored to welcome our distinguished dignitaries. PhD CCI has been working as a catalyst for the promotion of the Indian industry, trade and entrepreneurship for the past 115 years. It's forward-looking, proactive and dynamic pan-India apex organization. As a partner with industry and government, PhD CCI has a special focus on MSMEs, especially at the grassroots level, with a strong national and international linkages for propelling progress, harmony, and integrated development of the Indian economy. The current global pandemic has banned travel worldwide, which has made it difficult for having a conductive environment such as an offline exhibition and conferences to carry out business with Indian investors. As the Chamber of Commerce of Industry, we have ensured a smooth flow of business by adapting to the current environment and conducting more than 300 webinars and 10 virtual exhibitions to cater to the industry. Our initiatives have been widely accepted and given due consideration by the government as well as private bodies. Similarly, the Retail Committee of PhD CCI post-lockdown saw brands competing frantically, and eventually survival and growth will depend on the strategies for these brands. And as part of the Retail Committee, we are trying to ensure that this industry not only survives but thrives. We are trying to help businesses navigate this uncertain time. And as part of this, we organized the virtual series called Retail 360s, Future of Retail. The first edition, which took place on 21st Jan 2021, we explored strategies and structures that retail leaders have adopted to connect and protect their people, reigniting purpose and inspiring allegiance in the age of compassion fatigue. Coming back to today's topic, retail refocus, realigning your consumer compass. In a climate defined by uncertainty, dynamic consumer insight informs an organization's capability to deliver across the entire value chain. Information is the foundation for action, and the ability to make early, informed decisions based on actionable consumer insight will be a competitive advantage as the operating environment corrects. The events of the last year resulted in significant disruption, both from a consumer and a business standpoint. We've seen shopping behavior from consumers change drastically. Whether we look at the amount of time people are spending on self-care, mental health, physical wellness, or any other day-to-day action, the behavior has been highly disrupted. Further, this behavior is different for different income levels. We are seeing a K-shaped recovery where high income levels are increasing the consumption, but low income levels are reducing the consumption. Consumers are going to be more thoughtful in which brands they engage with and how they engage with those brands. Loyalty dynamics are shifting both in brands as well as channels, and people are trying new products and new ways to shop. Whether this shift is permanent, only time will tell. The purpose of this session is to brainstorm with industry experts on the changing consumer behavior and unpack the systems and structures that empower retailers to look through the fog of crisis towards a new vision for their business and a brighter tomorrow. I would like to invite all the panelists to share their views that will shape the future of retailers. I'm sure that this session would entail a better understanding and strategic solutions towards the future of the retail industry. Thank you. I now invite our moderator, Dr. Pooja Jain, to please start the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Shashwatji. Thank you, Dr. Yogesh and PGCCI, who's organizing this kind of series, and especially in the sector which really requires a lot of attention, keeping the context in mind that is the biggest employment generator if I look after agriculture for an economy like us, where the numbers, the population numbers are huge, and we really need to create employment opportunities. So I think it's a great initiative, and for creating such kind of a platform to discuss and deliberate on issues of retail. So I welcome all my panelists who are joining us for this second session. And it is a diverse panel with inspiring speakers. I've gone through your profiles. You have, excellent experience. And I think I was listening to the first session, and after, listening the first session, I am really thinking that whether we'll be able to do justice, because the first session was very insightful, and the big think tank was there, wherein multiple issues ranging from maintaining your profitability, keeping innovation going, and managing omni channels was the focus. So I hope you're going to be doing justice to this session. Let's start the conversation on the topic which has been given to us, which is realigning your consumer compass. When I look at the start of 2020, there was a VUCA disruption, which was like never before. And the pandemic actually overhauled the rules of traditional retail. And, consumer-facing businesses across the globe, they've had a jaw-clenching ride to just stay afloat. So the past few months have actually brought unprecedented, uncertain, complex, and such changes which I think none of the industries could have ever imagined, and that's applicable to even retail. So in this wake of coronavirus, some retailers have thrived while others have struggled to even survive. So there has been actually a very massive kind of an impact on consumer behavior, the dimensions which are affecting their demand, how they're buying, the buying patterns have changed, the way you engage with customers has changed. And when I look at the situation now, things are improving, but consumer sentiment still remains very cautious. So all the people are coming back to malls or shops, but footfall, if I compare, it's still quite low as compared to what it used to be in pre-COVID times. But there is a lot of digitization that is taking place. But I think nothing, that's my personal feeling, that nothing can replicate the shopping experience and authenticity of purchase that offline retail has to offer. But I think the future of retail lies on seamless integration of both online as well as offline channels. So end of the day, there will be customers for both the channels. That's what I believe. But looking at the trends, there has definitely been a shift in the Indian consumers' preference towards online channels, and the changes that this pandemic has entailed, like working from home, greater focus on safety and wellness, they're expected to continue even post the pandemic. So we have adjusted to the new normal, but things are continuing in the same way what was even last year. So, the rate of technology adoption definitely has gone up. And when I look at India, e-commerce is catching up momentum, but it is still a very small part of the overall pie of the Indian market. So digitization has definitely influenced our lives and businesses. But for businesses to be actually, successful in the digital space actually determines on how digital native or digitally connected, or what kind of an experience the companies are going to be able to create. So industry, the retail industry's future actually lies with organizations who are actually learning, evolving, learning to adapt to these changes. So they'll be witnessing a lot of conversion of channels that is going to take place. So there'll be a lot of complementing each other, so as to seamlessly, offer consumers better experience and journey. So I feel in the end, there won't be any winners take it all philosophy in the future. The winner will take everyone with him. So there'll be leaders and there'll be followers in the market. And for this session, what we have decided is that there will be few broad areas that we'll be focusing on. That is, what are the changing consumer trends and how firms are actually navigating through these challenging retail landscapes and positioning themselves as a leading brand for today as well as future, as well as focusing on some digital trends, digital technologies that firms are using to revolutionize the entire customer experience. across their important touch points, and what kind of enablers organizations have actually put in place to make this digital transformation work through, and even analyzing that, is this trend or is this change going to stay for some time? So is it this change is going to be more permanent in nature, or is it going to be a very temporary phenomena? So we'll be talking about these kinds of issues, as well as also talking about how companies have realigned their strategies in order to remain competitive and stay relevant in the market. So these are some of the issues that we would be touching in this panel. First, I'd like to start with Megha, actually. So Megha, during the last few months, there were shuttered shops, minimal revenues, inability to pay rentals, and struggle with even working capital requirements. And there were some companies who were looking at huge spikes in demand, and especially you're joining us from UK. So the situation there also, there have been lockdown, and still situation is quite worse. And there have been piles of unsold inventories, stocks, which is causing a big nightmare to local kiranas. And another thing which I observe is that this pandemic has actually taught retailers a concept called essentials and non-essentials, from government action perspectives. So segments such as apparel, beauty, wellness, jewelry, they come into non-essentials categories. So they've received a setback. And since you are from that industry, so what kind of challenges did your company face, and the cope-up mechanism which was adopted at your end? Megha.
Thank you, Pooja. Yes, times have been tough in the past, 1 year or so since the pandemic has hit. We should also, I completely agree with you when you talk about the mindset of the consumer is still not there yet. I know that we have gone through a pandemic situation trying to cope up with what COVID has done until now to all the human civilization. However, what we haven't, I think we need to also get ready for the second phase, which is just not the health, the physical issue of COVID when it attacks your body, but also the mental issue. So there is a huge social issue. The wave is going to hit now because the confinement, being locked, especially me when I'm living in Paris. In a way, I'm lucky because I have a bigger apartment over here, but most of the people live in 25, 30 meter square apartment with hardly 1 or 2 windows. So being confined in such small spaces, having very less interaction with other human beings really creates a mental kind of a disorder in any human being's, life. So it's very important to also see how to navigate the social barrier and the wave that is going to hit the consumers this year. So that is definitely one part of the things that we are looking into. Now, talking about the way the retail has been evolved and changed, yes, I think coming from L'Oreal, I would say that our company has been extremely agile and extremely reactive, and at the same time even proactive, I would say, because L'Oreal is in the beauty business. We are one of the leaders in terms of digital transformation. There's no one next to L'Oreal who has actually done it in the region of beauty. The second thing to also take a look at is, yes, we do make beauty products, but at the same time, we do have essential products as well. And this is where we have actually kind of increased our revenues. So if you're talking about brands like Lancôme, Yves Saint Laurent, or even Kiehl's or Elena Rubinstein, yes, these all become very luxury brands, but we also have the consumer product division brands such as Garnier, L'Oréal Paris, Maybelline. So Garnier and Elseve is something that everybody uses around the world. You have shampoos, you have, conditioners, you have soaps, etc. So these are the basic necessities that also fall into kind of an essential category, I would say. So in that way, yes, our consumer product division, and especially what we call as active consumer division, which has all the dermatological products, has definitely seen a lot of rise in sales. So if you take a recent look at our financial reports, you can see that L'Oreal is the only company group in luxury today that has plus 5% in terms of revenues. It's incredible to see. So ideally, people do look at our products as essential products to use on a daily basis, especially when it comes to skincare and hair care. So when it comes to skincare, we do have dermatological products. We have dermatological brands. L'Oreal has around 36 brands in the entire group. So out of that, we have brands like Vichy, La Roche-Posay, and also Cereva, which has taken off very, very well with the teenagers. So when you're talking about wellness and well-being from the beginning of the conversation that we were having, these products, these brands cater to such kind of audience because people are looking for more organic. They're looking for more natural, sustainable products today. And this is what we are focusing at, even to bring to our consumers. So we're talking more about being natural, more about being closer to what people are expecting today, and especially with the, talking about the environmental issues that all of us are facing. So these are the things that we are tackling not only through our brands, but also through other activities that we do. Say, for example, we talk about L'Oreal for the Future, what we have, which our CEO has established since the past 10 years. And we are going to be investing around $50 million in terms of how to reduce the carbon footprint in the world, how to really empower women to make sure that, there are more women leaders, to treat the women and men equality at workspace. So that is another angle. The other we're also looking into is how to have sustainable packaging, for example. So if you look at the first innovative packaging that L'Oreal has ever come out with was Giorgio Armani with My Way perfume that we've come out with. So the entire product is made on a sustainable way. Whatever is used in it is, and I'm very proud because I come originally from India, and all the marigold flowers that we use in My Way in Armani comes from Mysore, where we actually help all the women who actually grow these marigold flowers in India, So these are the kind of things that we try to integrate a lot in our product. Apart from this, not only just women empowerment through My Way perfume of Armani, we also have invented a new way of packaging where you can refill the bottle without even wasting a single drop of your perfume. And the entire thing is recyclable. This nobody has today. No other brand has offered this. So in terms of product innovation, in terms of making sure that we support communities that need help around the world in a very sustainable way, I think we are really, really, at the forefront of these activities. Now, talking about the third part, which you said, digital transformation. Yes, digital transformation is extremely important for any organization, considering the pandemic that we're going through. However, I think from my point of view, digital transformation, digital can be just a part of the puzzle, but it is not the thing to take the business to the next level. So people have stopped interacting physically during the pandemic. Yes, it does give the digital a push, but however, going back into how human civilization survives, we are all social animals. We need to get out, we need to meet people, and especially as Indians, when we're talking about, we love to enter a store, we love to touch the product, we love to feel it, we need to, use it and talk to our friends, get their reviews, talk to your mother or talk to your mother-in-law. And, so all of these family and friends relationships come into picture. And it's very, very important as humans to always interact. So yes, for a short period of time, digital will definitely take a lot of importance in terms of reaching direct to consumer, for sure. However, the retail experience on one-on-one, to have the interaction with the product directly, is as much as important as it used to be before, because it's the whole experience. It's just not, touching a product and saying, okay, I'm going to buy it. So it's the experience that the entire store gives you. When you go inside, you have a different smell. When you're touching the product, there is somebody who is coming to you and explaining what it does and how it performs, how you have to use it, how do you have to maintain the product, how do you have to maintain your skin, your hair, etc. They consult you, they look at your type of the skin, they look at the type of your hair. So it's very important, or even in terms of, say, other luxury brands, whether it's Louis Vuitton or Hermes or Chanel, it's very important because we are a product-based company at the end of the day. When there is a physical product involved, before investing any amount of money, especially for Indians, we tend to look at how much value does the product bring to us. And that is possible only by feeling and touching the product and having a conversation with the salesperson. So this is very important. In terms of digital transformation, yes, we have done quite a bit, I would say, at L'Oreal. We have invented a new product which was unveiled at CES in January or February of last year, just before the lockdown happened. It's called Perso. And this is a wonderful product where you can buy one product for skincare. It has 3 tubes inside. Depending on the humidity, the temperature, the pollution level, the atmospheric conditions outside, and your skin type, it mixes automatically the right dose that is perfect for your skin. So you don't need to really buy 2 or 3 creams, to apply on your face, but with one cream, you can start refilling it, and it's called Perso because you can personalize it for your skin. And this is one part of product innovation in terms of digital, using artificial intelligence. Now, the second part, of course, in terms, it does not really, how do you say, it's not so different as what most of the brands are doing right now. I would say one of the things that was extremely successful with our clients and consumers was an application called Modi Face, which we used, where a person can just download the app, look at their profile, and the application just suggests what you want without even touching. Because the biggest problem that we faced during the pandemic was people not using testers. So if people don't use testers in beauty, it's very difficult for you to sell the product. So how do you translate this tester into an app? So especially for makeup, it was a huge breakthrough for us, where we saw the sales of makeup increasing once we started launching the Modi Face application to everyone. So this is definitely direct to consumers, what we're talking about. Now, coming to the digital transformation for L'Oreal itself, yes, we have, I think, invested quite a lot last year to make sure that, the Teams, Microsoft Teams or Zoom or even internal communication works in a very, very effective way. And we have invested quite a lot in terms of taking the digital transformation to the next level.
Megha, it's really nice to know, what kind of innovations your company is doing in terms of the product innovations, expanding your product line, tuning it according to the company's needs. You've also shared with us, the kind of social initiatives which your company is taking, that whether it is women empowerment, are they really, only social initiatives? Because you were talking about, natural and, sustainable. Is it only those words which look good or, fascinating in the, eyes of the target audience or general public? Or is it really that the company is, focusing on such strategies for a long-term, or a sustainability aspect, or really the company is environmentally responsible? Because they look good in books, when we teach, but are they really implemented in the organizations, is which I would like you to, throw more light upon.
Sure, not a problem. So over here, I would say, yes, people do talk a lot about these fancy words, on sustainable, eco-friendly, and empowerment of women, and etc. I completely agree. At L'Oreal, it's very different, and I was very pleasantly surprised when I joined the company. I did not expect that they actually walk the talk. So when we are talking about sustainability, I'll give you one example. From last year onwards, we have completely revamped the logistic way of dealing with shipments to make sure that there are savings in terms of environmental impact, especially on the carbon footprint that we are dealing with. So I've had enough, and it's a longer process, and it takes, for example, if you're shipping by air versus shipping by sea, by air, you ship faster, but then there is a larger amount of footprint of carbon that you leave. By sea, it takes a bit more time, but there is much lesser impact on the environment.
But but you have to work on that availability aspect and availability at the right point of time. Doesn't that distribution efficiency, it gets suffered, because ultimately companies are wanting to make money.
True. It wouldn't, I would say, because it takes, for example, for us, I would say, for example, if you take the Christmas season at the end of the year, which is the most important season, or if there is any new launch that we are having with YSL or Lancôme or Armani or Ralph Lauren, if you have, or Prada or Valentino, any of the big brands that we have today, if you're talking about that, then for the best sellers, we do some exceptions. Say, for example, to make sure that the products are on the shelf, we do an exception of having air shipment to certain clients where we know that shipment by sea can take a longer period of time. But majoritarily, it is already planned between 2 to 3 months on how to deal with inventory and shelf life of the products. So all of these transformations have been happening with the clients. It's not an easy one, I would say, because the clients definitely don't want later shipments. They want something, immediately happening all the time. However, now they are also understanding what we want to do as part of L'Oreal for the future. And this is something that we have committed that we would do it by 2030. And we have to, take steps to reach that commitment. And these are the small steps that we are taking one by one in terms of reducing the carbon footprint, for example. Coming to another initiative, say, for example, Kiehl's, with our brand Kiehl's, it's very nature friendly, etc. So over here, we have always been planting trees for the last, 10, 15 years around the world. So definitely this will keep continuing. And of course, in India, it's not visible so much because these brands are not really present in the local market. They're present mostly in the airports, except for Kiehl's, which is present in the local market, but still Lancôme and YSL and Armani and Prada and Valentino, all of these brands are yet to come to the local market in terms of real retail presence. But in other markets, we are far ahead in terms of implementing these initiatives. Now, coming to the women empowerment, I would say L'Oreal is quite well positioned in that. Being a woman and joining L'Oreal over here, I have never felt any discrimination. And I know when you go to countries like Australia or the United States or anything, sometimes brown skin can cause a little bit of, turbulence or disarrayment, I would say, at the workspace. But I have never come across any of these issues. I've always been welcomed. All the Indians, all the Africans, all the Asians in L'Oreal get the same priority and equality as the French or Europeans do. At the end of the day,
that's really nice to know, Megha. You've also touched on very important point. I'll come back to you on customer value. I would like to take the discussion forward now to Sanjay ji. During the pandemic, there was a massive surge in demand for staple goods, and consumers worried about product shortages, and they seek to minimize their store visits, and they anticipated long stretches of time at home. So there were a lot of stockouts and rationing in some categories that was taking place. And even demand for online food shopping delivery had skyrocketed. So there were a lot of problems which companies, and especially I'm sure that ITC must also be experiencing the same, wherein there were problems to with supply chain, and the way you had to be sourcing products, making products, moving products, or stocking was creating a problem. So I feel there must have been a lot of changes that you must have done in order to manage your supply chain, including from where you were sourcing. The trucking industry was facing a problem. There was a lockout, warehousing was a problem, and store operations, home delivery. So I'm sure there must be a lot of changes which you must have faced, and a lot of changes you must have done to your strategy. So can I request you to now share your experience, how you manage your supply chains in those difficult times?
Sure, Ms. Pooja. And I'll take off from where my earlier colleague panelist Megha was talking about L'Oreal having essentials and so-called maybe non-essentials. So in our world, which is very different from the world L'Oreal operates in, essentials for us are products like atta, Ashirwad atta, products like biscuits, products like noodles, or snacks, for example, or milk, paneer, curd, these are what we classify as essentials. And those were obviously due to pantry loading, we had huge demand for them. On the other hand, non-essentials, which in our case will not be a high-end lipstick. In our case, it will be like a juice or a chocolate or a coffee. They were not facing so much of a demand. Now, obviously, there were multiple challenges from a supply chain perspective. I mean, the first thing is that we are a food company, and we have 80 factories in the country. So the first thing was how to get people to come and work in the factories. So, I mean, we were only able to start, I think, 5 or 6 factories on the day one when Prime Minister Modi ji, he announced the lockdown. But after that, I think within a week, we were able to start most of our factories. So one was assuring your own people, because you have thousands of people coming to your factories to work. Some may be your own employees, some may be contractual employees, some may be drivers of trucks, as you mentioned. So how do you assure them and their families that they will be safe? A lot of them actually went away to their villages. So we were actually, in Kapurthala, we have a plant in Punjab. We had actually sent a bus, and our managers went to actually convince the families that they will be safe. We even had to make facilities for them to live and eat in our own factories, because it was not safe to send someone every day out and come back again. We also did, for example, a lot of life insurance. So we did COVID insurance for our own employees in our factories, for our sales teams, for our distributor sales teams, and for our drivers, for our transporters, etc., etc. So that is one part to it. Now, secondly, the bigger challenge is that you mentioned about essentials. And yes, the government of India was very, very benign, keeping the consumer interest in mind, that they said, okay, let us say milk or even atta. It is an essential product. Fantastic. So we can make an atta in our factories and we can dispatch it. But I can buy wheat. But the problem is the policeman or the traffic policeman on the highway to my factory, he knows that wheat is essential, atta is essential. He doesn't know the gunny bag is essential, or the glue to make the gunny bag, or the oil to run the factory is essential. So these are some of the problems that obviously one had to face. However, I should say that I think we will all agree that, be it in Paris or be it in India, that it is actually the sort of a profile which is the municipal worker, the medical community, and the police, which has actually come out and served the humanity in the last 1 year. So I think that we have got very, very good support from district administration, the entire government machinery to that extent. The third part of the supply chain challenge obviously is in terms of reaching the product to your consumer, because a lot of it has been talked about digital and how it has helped. But the reality is, I don't know about you guys, but definitely sitting in Bangalore, I mean, all these big names, Amazon and Big Basket, were not delivering the first few weeks of the lockdown. And which is something they have to introspect, because I mean, they came at least a month later. So it's actually your neighborhood kirana who people had stopped going for years, who actually came to your rescue. It is so. I think that is the other thing which we worked upon. So I mean, neighborhood kiranas, they expanded the range of the products they have, and like any responsible FMCG company, we started giving them more frequent service, also enabling them. And we talk about digital. Digital at one level is about digital shopping on fancy applications. But the reality is that, I mean, thanks to the low bandwidth rates in India, I mean, every neighborhood kirana started doing small Google Sheets based ordering for their societies and consumers around them. So that's the other thing. Third thing which we started is that we realized that we needed a gateway, or we need a channel to reach out our atta or our biscuits or noodles or whatever you may say, or our milk or our paneer, to our consumers. So we also started some interesting tie-ups. So for example, I remember in the first 3 weeks, we tied up with Domino's. And obviously the pizza industry was in a bit of a challenge at that time. So Domino's started, I think, in 4 or 5 states, 3 or 4 states. Domino's started delivering our atta to consumers, to their own consumers that they were ordering. We tied up with Swiggy, etc., etc. But we also did, we started an initiative called ITC Store on Wheels, we are a company which is into foods, personal care, machis agarbatti, stationery, etc., etc. So what we have started in the pandemic and we're taking on now, it's continuing, is that we started actually taking appointments from societies in metros and sending the whole range of our products to those societies and providing those consumers the opportunity to buy the larger range. So in conclusion, what I wanted to say is that the challenge was first on getting this entire supply chain, raw material, packaging material, as well as the manpower in your factories going. Second was having distributors work, so assuring them. Third was then the further on was demand supply matching. And the third was really getting alternate channels. I mean, who could have imagined that we could have sold Ashirwad Atta through Domino's bikers? But we did that. And I think that is what I think in the earlier panel discussion, I think Ms. Pooja, you were also there, you were listening to them. I think agility and the entrepreneurial mindset of Indians, it has really come out in this pandemic to a large extent, I would say.
Great, Sajjaji. I think ITC has done a wonderful job, and tying up with aggregators was very innovative in terms of how you were actually making things deliver, which were really required in those times. And I would definitely agree with you that the Kiranas are not going to go anywhere. They are the ones who have been actually the helplines in those difficult times. Whether they were opening for a smaller period of duration because of the district administrative laws and regulations in place, but they were the ones who were actually delivering at your home, at your doorstep, and as per your requirement. So I feel it is not just that in these times that they have been proactive in their approach. Since organized retail has started impacting their business, they have changed and revamped their entire working style, which is actually required by them. So I'll take it forward from here. Since you were talking about digitization, and many of these e-commerce players entered the market late. So no matter what industry or we talk about, I think technology is definitely going to be required at some point of time. But the change can be intimidating. It can be unpredictable and it can be even stressful. But I feel there are new digital tools which companies are working on, and they have integrated into the entire workflow, and organizations are able to drive more business using such tools, and to manage their customers better than what they were managing them earlier. So I would request Nikhilji, if you could talk about what digital trends your firm is using to revolutionize the entire customer experience across the most important touch point of yours, and the key enablers which you put in place to make this transformation work.
Okay. First of all, thanks, Ms. Pooja, and I'm also thankful to Mr. Shashwat Somani, the entire team of PhD CCI, Mr. Saurabh Bansal, Mr. Dalbia, Dr. Yogesh, and Mr. Ajay Bansal for giving me this opportunity. I think I really do not want to be into this COVID situation, but for us as an organization, Hindway Appliances, the consumer has spent a lot of time in the COVID times within their house, and probably that's one of the reasons that has fueled the growth of the appliances in the India market. And I think in last 2 quarters, just forget the 45 or to 60 odd days when we were in complete lockdown. So the response of the consumer towards the appliances is really very good. And in fact, the products like dishwashers, which was like sold out in another 45 days or 60 days because of the known reasons. So for us as an industry, this there has been a definite improvement in the sales as well as revenue, and that's there for all the companies which are there into this sector. And definitely those companies who have already worked upon their supply chain, their stock, their manufacturing, as touched by other panelists also, they are able to serve their consumer better. Now coming to how we are trying to reach out to our consumers better. So in our case, now we are into the appliances business. So the consumer journey start right from when you search a chimney store near me. So from there, the journey start for us, and then it is on to us how we want to serve this consumer. This is his requirement. So whether we want to take and guide the consumer to the nearest store where he can get the touch and feel or experience of our product, then we want this consumer to visit to the e-commerce, which is, as you also said, that the e-commerce has very well stabilized in the Indian market. And in fact, for us as an organization, almost 20%, 25% of our revenue is coming from the e-commerce. So we can guide the consumer to the e-commerce place, giving the same experience. And further, we can also guide the consumer to our own e-commerce portal where he can buy all our products. So all these journeys, whichever mode a consumer want to choose, we have to ensure that we give him a smooth consumer experience where he get more complete information about the product and till the final decision making for purchasing the product and even the services which are post purchase. So that kind of digital mapping we are doing for us in our organization in reaching out to our consumers better. And when we are laying down the digital strategy for our organization, it's not only the consumers we are focusing, we are also focusing the influencers. We are also focusing on B2B partners. So there are a lot of startups who are working in this domain and which can help you integrate with all the consumers, influencer partners, bring in the technologies like which can have an omni-channel presence, which was very well covered in the previous discussion. So we can have the omni-channel presence, that strategy like hyper-local that can help us to serve our consumers better and bring a complete balance between the e-commerce as well as the retailers. So for Hindu Appliances, we have more than 9,000 retailers for pan-India. And most of our sales is happening from our retailers. So how we can bridge the e-commerce, our own e-commerce, the Flipkart and Amazon and our retailers, that's where the hyper-local strategy comes up. So as an organization, we understand there's a consumer preference is changing, the consumer requirements are changing. So we are making all kinds of digital initiatives and reaching out to our consumers better through our website, through our own. We have one-stop solution of app where we can get all the products listed. They can have a review of the products. We are going for WhatsApp for business. So all these touch points are helping us to connect better with our consumers.
Great, Nikhilji. Since you've talked about the entire digital journey, I feel most of the brands are working on this kind of a format. And there is a lot of content which is there for consumers for their consumption. And, even consumers are creating a lot of content these days, and they're distributing content. And there are, a number of connected devices from which the content is being shared. So there is a massive increase in the media noise which is being created, by companies as well as consumers. So, which is actually making the conventional marketing models obsolete. But apart from all this, but there are countless companies who are running, a lot of campaigns, and they feel that, all these digital, connect is going to sway their customers. But in this world of limitless media noise, do you think companies would be able to break through to customers? And what are the challenges, which are there in creating that kind of a emotional connect with the customers in today's time? I would request Radhikesh ji if you could touch on these aspects. Radhikesh ji, you are on mute mode.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you, Dr. Pooja, for the opportunity given to me for now talking on this subject, and thank you, PSG CCI. Let me share about the background of Dorset. We are not in the business of selling atta, or we are not in the business of selling, L'Oreal cosmetics, or we are not in the business of selling some, dishwashers. So the moment lockdown came and the moment pandemic started, we were honestly completely caught unaware, because we are in a business of door hardware and furniture hardware. Now, door hardware and furniture hardware is not a consumer-oriented, consumer-centric product. when the involvement of consumer is, very minimalistic. I would say in the decision-making process, there are some 25 to 30% odd end consumers who are actually involved, and they know what is getting fitted on your building, what is getting fitted on your door, what is getting fitted on your modular kitchen or wardrobe. So, as we were talking about the essentials and non-essentials, this was the last product, to be on the list of priority. So first people will go for the food, first people will go for the medicines or whatever others. So we had a tough time there, big challenge, toughest challenge. And I would say at the same time, it was an opportunity also for all of us. So we sat down, we decided, let's work on strengthening our strength. Whatever strength we talk about, let's strengthen it further. We are known for innovative door hardware manufacturers. So we started making a couple of products which are not from our field, but very innovative in nature and which was useful for, the people who are affected with the pandemic, who doesn't want to touch anything. So we introduced a couple of products like a tap. A tap was a small device which can be used for operating your lift, which can be used for operating your door of the car, which can be used for even lifting some packets or something, which is touch-free. At the same time, we also worked on many products which was wherein you are not supposed to touch your hand. You can use your elbow and without touch you can operate your door. So we started working on strengthening those fields where we work. And parallelly, the challenge area for us, because to sell your product, our sales team touch base with the architects, the contractors, the builders, or the retailers in the retail channel. Now, retail was completely closed. No hardware stores were opening. What to do in this time? So we started connecting with them. We started utilizing for the first time, digital platforms. We created that, and we started connecting with them, and we started educating them at this time, not only about our products, but also about when we open up, how are you going to manage your business? How are you going to execute your business? Because the scenarios are going to be changed. The customer requirements will be completely changed. So we started using this very basic platform of digital platforms to empower ourselves and also to empower our channel partners. So this is how we utilize the period of pandemic. Post-pandemic, till now, we are still facing the same problem that the people are not coming in. The end consumer are still not coming in. The contractors, carpenters, they are still not coming into the retail outlets at the same number which they were used to before. So why it is happening? The end consumer's involvement has gone up. Now, end consumer has started using digital platform. They have started using the mobile apps. They have started using the websites and the different various platforms that is available for the product understanding. So they are much more educated today. We are providing parallelly all the possible platforms from Dorset so that the knowledge level gets enhanced for the end consumer and the business cycle improves. Unlike the developed countries, you don't have the DIY culture in India. People don't do their job on their own. They have professionals available. They have carpenters, they have painters, they have plumbers available, and you can outsource your job. So wherever the DIY culture is there, the involvement of consumer is also very high. So you have a lot of things to do on digital platform. So right now, till now, we have very limited scope, I would say, to play upon the digital platform. So we are focusing back on our basics. So we are giving whatever is required in terms of knowledge and education to the consumers so that they spend lesser time while they visit any retail stores of hardware for the final touch and feel experience and finally converting their design into business, into sales. So this is how it is going up. The basic rule of hardware trade is still the same. Today also it is all the game of retaining the shelf space. The more shelf space you have, the more you are in leadership position. So what we are doing is, in fact, when everything opened up, the start line, the start line, you have a leader, you have a follower generally in the established market. So when everything started, everybody was on the start line. So whoever runs fast, whoever shows the productivity better, they are definitely going to perform. And this is what we did. We assured our sales team, don't you worry, we are there. A very beautifully designed V-Care policy from Dorset was initiated that took care of everybody. You don't worry about your well-being, you don't worry about your salary, you don't worry about your retention or not, or retrenchment. Nothing is going to happen. It was given in writing, and that was the result, that our team started to moving fast. So it was not first mover advantage, it was the first rapid mover advantage with us, with Dorset. Today, I would say we are keeping our fingers crossed. Probably with the end of this financial year, we shall be able to touch our same numbers what we did last year, despite such a big lull in the business. So this is how the entire journey, from Dorset.
That's really nice to hear, Adhikeshji. And I think for companies like you, or even companies which are like, say, FMCG companies or consumer durable brands, the first customers are their distributors or retailers. And when you were talking about that you trained them and you were actually having that kind of connect with them, which was really essential in those times, because there was no business which is happening at their end, and you had to actually keep them connected. So that's a wonderful thing which your organization did. And taking it up from here, I would request Sanjay ji, if there were some of these kind of initiatives which ITC had taken for keeping their distributors and retailers connected in those difficult times, if you could tell us on those.
Sure. So, I mean, obviously, for our FMCG business, we would have around 4,500 distributors. And the challenge was, I mean, distributors were worried about opening their shops or their godowns. The bigger challenge was that not only the workers in the factories, but also, I mean, obviously, we would be selling our 5 rupee, 10 rupee biscuits or noodles to, let's say, around 4.5 million outlets in the country. So there's an army of distributor salesmen who goes to 25-30 shops every day on a weekly basis and books the orders. The problem was larger that they had gone back to their hometowns in the lockdown and they were not there. So we literally did not have feet on street to actually go. So two things that we did is, one is support the distributors. I mean, we did the insurance that I talked about, which is the COVID insurance for their staff. Number two is that we enabled some IT or digital methodologies. Now, so a lot of our retailers, we moved from having a distributor salesman come and book the order to creating an app, which is a B2B app, where the retailers can book products of ITC and it will be delivered by the distributor at a set timeline. Other thing is that our distributors, they also enabled telephone ordering, because distributors, there was a lot of transportation. Let's say traffic police had stopped transportation. So distributors were having a problem in sending the stocks to the retailers in the markets. So basically we enabled telephone ordering. The retailer could call up, he could book an order, and he could come in his bike or his auto and he could pick up stock. So these are the two things which was done from the distributor and the retailer part of it. I want to add one more thing, taking off on the digital part, which I found very, very interesting. Is that, tyically when I said that we operate 80 factories in India, and obviously there are new products we launched in the lockdown, and we also started new factories or new lines in our existing factories. So we were adding one more line for making noodles, for example, in Bengal, or we were launching a new immunity juice or a new Savlon product, a hand disinfectant. Now, typically the way it works for us, that when you're making a new product, the product development person, he travels to a remote factory to make the first product, to demonstrate that the recipe is working, everything is working. Here, it is very, very interesting. The product development person was sitting in, let's say, Bangalore, the factory is in Bengal, and through Zoom call or Teams call, they were working throughout the night to ensure that the product which is getting first made there is actually right. So I think beyond the fact I talked about agility, I think also shows that when you start trusting people, when you start trusting each other in an organization, you can do magic. Because we could never imagine in the earlier scenario, two people will go, they will sit for 5 days, they will say, okay, how is the batch getting made? Is the sugar level right? Is this right? Is that right in the product? Today, a product development head sitting of any of our categories in Bangalore was very comfortable with the factory manager actually making the first time the product, saying, "मैंने taste कर लिया है, ये ठीक है," and go ahead and sell it in the market.
I think we've learned a lot of things in this, past 8-9 months. That I'm very sure that travel expenses of companies must have come down drastically, because all the product managers or sales managers who are traveling to their fields are no more going, and virtually the connect is possible. And I think very important thing that you said, the trust. I think the trust which was missing earlier, wherein physical verification of everything was being done. Now it is there even in virtual mode, where you're not physically going, but you're interacting virtually, and everything is being made done, and no visits are actually required, or physical visits are required, which is really very nice. Nikhilji, you want to take this, or would want to add on something to it?
I think most of the points are covered by the panelists. So we also work on the similar lines. Like taking care of all our employees, helping all our retailers in opening of the shops, carrying out the insurance, even the proper security measures, because we have to start our office as well. People have to come to office because it's not all the functions that can work from home. So we took all proper precautions, whether it is mask, whether it is sanitation, periodic sanitation of the office, every week deep sanitation office. And touch wood, we didn't get much of these cases into our office, and the operations runs very smoothly. And hats off to and the entire sales and service team who were actually visiting all the counters, and as well as the service team who is visiting each and every customer house for the servicing of the product. So we launched some policies, like we extended for all those people whose warranty was expiring in this lockdown period. We extended the warranty for almost 6 months to solve all our consumers. So all these actions were taken, and the service team really took all the precautions while reaching out to the consumer house in servicing their products, because some of the items like water purifier, hobs, cooktops. So these are the most essential appliances. So we took all the cares and going forward and delivering us same consumer experience which we were delivering to our consumer in the pre-COVID time as well.
Nikhilji, I have a question wherein I would want to ask, companies in the COVID times were actually just worried about sales. Was customer retention or repeat purchases, were these kinds of loyalty, to be asking specifically? You think that was happening in those times, or is loyalty index to be calculated in such times or not?
Actually, we have these parameters which we through which we continuously gauge our performance, our consumer loyalty. Like for service, I was mentioning about service, we have a turnaround time, so yeah, happy calling. So but definitely it is not possible for us to achieve a same level of consumer confidence in this such unprecedented times. But what we have observed, that consumers were also very were accepting the situations. So if there is a delay of 1 or 2 days in the repairing of the appliance, I think there was not much of a noise among the consumers. So that's from the service point of view. Coming from a sales perspective, I think we can never take the consumer loyalty and consumer experience to a second level, and definitely not ahead of sales. Sales is important to run any organization. Both sales as well as profit are important, but the most important part is the consumer experience. So there can be a slight up and down in giving the same experience, but we try our best to give a same consumer experience. And whether a consumer is visiting our store, whether it is visiting our website, our e-commerce portals, so the same consumer experience we try to deliver in these times as well.
Radhikesh, since you were talking about that you received that advantage, so what is the future go-to-market strategy now, keeping retailers in focus, to drive further conversions?
Sure. So, as I said, many opportunities we witnessed. One was absence of very important or impressive presence on digital platform. So, e-commerce is something we started, which was the demand from our retail channel, that they want a platform, because overnight they could not have build up their, because they deal in multi-brand, so they could not have built up their own platform. When their customer, without visiting their stores, they can go through the product experience and the application, everything they understand. And after understanding everything, they visit their stores. So this is what we have started. At the same time, since in the beginning, we did a lot of hand holding compared to anybody else, I would say very proudly. So that loyalty, the topic which you were discussing just now, little bit of loyalty shifting we have experienced towards our favor. Now, it's a very vague word, loyalty, because see, India is such a diverse country with the geography, with the preferences, with the culture, tradition. So there is no one size fits all strategy for you going forward. You have to have a very focused, multiple options for making strategies. When you are dealing with East consumer, you have to be a little different. When you are dealing with South, you have to be you have to have a different mix of actions to handle them. When you are dealing with North or West, you have to have different strategies in place. So I think we have identified everything. And yes, a couple of, traditionally in our business, couple of geographies are very, very strong towards certain brands. And they are also being branded as not a easy changers. But during this period, because we initiated so many things, which was helpful for them. For example, we helped them in creating their Facebook page. A store, hardware store, having their own Facebook page, and we were sitting in our office. We were doing the work for them and giving to them. Now they remember it. So these guys helped us. Now they are flashing it to the customer. They're connecting to the customers. Now they're taking it to the next level. So these kind of a lot of activities are already lined up. We have already executed many things. So going forward, yes, days are good. Demands are moving up. I think apart from the other FMCG products, even the building material activity has gone up, and we are witnessing a good sign going forward.
Great. See, India is a very geographically diverse country, and we are not just geographically diverse. I think we vary in terms of our requirements, our traditions, cultures. So if you go down south, there are different factors which influence consumer behavior. If you move up towards the north, there is a totally different kind of a consumer set with different needs and requirements. So I think every 20-25 kilometers you start moving, there is a different trend that we observe. Since I'm in Delhi, and I always tell my students, if you sit in a metro from say one destination to the end route, I think after every 5 stations there'll be a different set of consumer traits that you'll observe in the people who are getting into the metro and even going down. So there are a lot of different requirements which each and every individual customer has. So taking it forward from here, Sanjay ji, what kind of changes have you observed during the last 10-11 months in the consumer behavior patterns, buying patterns? Has there been any change, or FMCG as a commodity, people are buying and they'll continue to remain buying because it's essential in nature?
Okay, so I mean, obviously one of the big changes has been what some of the other panelists also spoken about the huge fortune, positive fortune that that essentials benefited from in the first 3 to 4 months, like atta or biscuits or let's say shampoos or something, and the misfortune that befell some categories like chocolates or cold drinks or other things. So that is one part. But obviously things have come back now, and we are seeing that the last quarter, even Nielsen is showing that the so-called non-essential categories have at least reached above water in terms of where they were the same period last year. So that is one. I think the second part, obviously, which is raising a lot of concern in the industry, is that there is a real GDP, there's an issue of incomes. There's an issue of real incomes. There's an issue of people not being so confident about their future earning everybody is putting all the money in banks. Some people who are able to afford, they are buying stuff. But I think that there's a real issue more in urban India than rural India. Rural is still managing. Agri-produce has been very good. Thanks or not, whatever I may say, whatever about this current farmer this thing, but I'm sure that the MSPs that the government will give to the farmer community will be very, very good. So rural incomes are protected and rural demand is not an issue. The issue is really in urban demand, especially urban middle class and lower class demand. And that is having an impact, at least even we are finding in our categories where we are selling a 10-20 rupee biscuit noodle or a 1 kg atta at 40-50 rupees. So that is the second part. I think the third part, which is very interesting, is that we all spoke about certain behaviors. You spoke about travel being restricted. Yes, there are certain behaviors that we as employees of organizations will continue. And of course, concurrently, we as consumers will also take back some of these behaviors and continue them. Obvious ones we all talk about is that we will continue doing a lot of shopping online, for example. That is obvious. But then the other part is also that there are certain things which were not big trends that will come up. For example, this entire point on that one of the earlier speakers talked about in terms of environmental awareness, in terms of recycling, in terms of awareness and a preference towards healthier products in foods or in personal care or whatever they consume. These are some trends which will continue. And I think that is the other thing that we will have to work on and be in line with the consumer.
What we are actually focusing on is the discretionary spending. We were actually talking about earlier times. We used to talk about per capita incomes, but now in today's context, we are actually talking about discretionary incomes. I have to spend on my mandatory expenses first, and then calculate whether I need to spend or not, because I'm not very optimistic of what the future is going to be all about. So people are very cautious. Consumers are not wanting to take any more chances because the uncertainty which still prevails. Things are definitely improving, but there is a lot of uncertainty in terms of, the jobs are going to be there or not, the income stream are going to be maintained or not. So they're only spending on what is mandatorily required and probably saving for the future needs if they arise. So that's the kind of mindset which the consumers currently have. There are certain important other aspects that I wanted to ask the other panelists, that there are a lot of technologies, emerging technologies. Since we were talking about digital trend, I'm very sure that talking to a chatbot is very different. Chatbot is very different to talking to an individual customer executive. The kind of experience definitely varies. And for me, as somebody a little older, would definitely like to talk to someone wherein I listen to a human voice, who's more empathetic, who's more ready to listen and eager to listen and solve my problem, rather than talking to a chatbot. But these are some of the technologies like AI, machine learning, IoT, which companies are trying to install to drive customers better, to engage with customers better. So if any of the panelists can actually throw some light on these areas.
Actually, you very rightly said that the technology cannot replace the human connect. Technology can only reduce it, but it cannot completely replace. The physical connect from a person to person is very much required. But what technology can play some role here is, I give you one example. You very well said that you would like to talk to a customer care executive to book your service request. What the technology can do here, like say, for example, you mentioned about the technology, IoT, artificial intelligence. With help of these technologies, we can drive a system where you need not to book a service request by yourself. Your product, with the help of his artificial intelligent algorithm, will book the service request automatically for you, and stating the service engineer what exactly is the problem in your product. So probably it will make the life much easier for you, so that even you, before coming to notice a problem in an appliance, a very near service engineer will be aware about the problem in your product. He will call you and he will book your time, and then he will come and repair with the product, and probably the accuracy of repairing in the first time will be much better. Similarly, the technology of augmented reality and virtual reality, then that plays a very important role here, where all consumer can have an experience in his own home. Suppose he want to buy a water heater or a sofa or a bed, he can see all those things in his own environment, get a better touch and feel, not a touch and feel, but a visual experience about the products. So this is the way technology is going to play a role. And IoT, when we link IoT to appliances, through IoT we get a lot of insights about the consumers. So as I said that at present the consumer journey start when he probably when he type on Google, like I'm looking for a chimney or water store here near me. In this particular case, when the IoT will come into picture, the consumer journey will start much before. And with the help of the data about the usage pattern of a consumer, we can figure it out what exactly consumer will be needing and offer him product. Can you imagine, suppose you have a chimney at your place. A chimney can draw a pattern, what is your cooking habits. And then we can be so specific to you that we can show the products which suits to your cooking habits. So that role technology will play. It will give consumer a much better experience. Definitely, it cannot replace the physical connect, but it will be a mix of physical as well as the digital, which we actually call as phygital.
I'm sure, I think Google knows what goes on in the mind. They know what's going on in our mind and what we're going to do next. And I'm sure technologies like IoT, as we were talking about, as well as AI and ML, they are getting businesses to drive more consumer insights, and getting those insights are actually helping companies to customize their solutions, their products according to the need sets, as well as mapping the entire customer journey, starting from their need requirement to actually completion of the cycle of delivery, as well as post-sale services. So I'm very sure that companies are definitely using it, but I don't know this concept is just applicable to larger enterprises, because they are the ones who have the money and the budgets to spend on development of such technologies. I'm not very sure whether SME enterprises are going to be actually able to implement it, and when the time would come, because these technologies are still very costly and they require budgets, at least in the first initial stages, and then you drive benefits for the long run. Apart from this, I have some few questions that I'm getting from the audience who are listening to the seminar, that will, since I raised this question earlier also, so I'm going to raise it again. So how consumer loyalty post-COVID is affecting marketing strategy? I'm very sure that loyalty is something, and especially when it comes to Indian consumers, loyalty is something which is spurious in nature. You really don't know whether sales are coming because the customers are truly loyal to you or not, because they may be coming because of multiple reasons, because it is easily available, or they're used to buying your product, or there are hardly any other choices. So, getting repeated sales does not really mean that it is loyalty. So a true loyalty in today's context, I don't know whether it exists or not. So I would request any of the panelists to take up this question.
I think I had discussed a bit on this loyalty thing. There are a couple of elements. As you rightly said, it's very difficult to measure the loyalty level of your customer, whether you're getting the repeat orders from the same customer or no. That can be measured. And the reason could be various. Maybe that particular month, there is certain freebie scheme is going on and the consumer got attracted to that. Maybe he is your old consumer. At the same time, there are a couple of new elements has come into picture. For example, anti-China sentiment. So today, when we buy anything, any gadget, I'm planning to buy a mobile phone for my daughter. Now, I'm very particular about which all country it should belong to and which all not. So these things are also playing their role. Second, in our industry, many importers are there who are importing from those kind of the Southeast Asian countries, predominantly China. Now, those guys actually are small-time operators, small-time importer, offering similar kind of products at a very cheap option. Now, those people are actually, they got vanished for a big time. Now, they are once again started. So, during that time, the end consumer or our consumer, they understood that who are there to stay. Make in India. No, we are a manufacturer making in India, but we never thought that making in India will be so important. We never talked big about it. So we actually mounted a communication campaign on Make in India. We are Make in India. You are safer with us. You are secured with us, and we are here to stay. We are here to take care of. So loyalties, yes, it has a little bit shifted, but I'm not very sure in the long run whether the consumers are going to forget all these current woes, and they're going to continue with the same thing, cheap stuff, kaam chalta hai attitude, and save money. So it depends. It's a very open subject, I would say.
I think it's quite debatable also, because loyalties in some categories we definitely observe, but in some there is always a variety seeking buying behavior, which consumers display, where they want variety, they seek differences in the price differential, and a very minor difference in terms of prices actually make them shift to other brands. And when we talk about competition in today's context, in fact, there are hardly any differences which prevail in products today. The only differences which remain in today's time are services. So the companies who give better services, better efficient services, are the companies who are going to actually drive the business for tomorrow. Sanjay ji, one question that has emerged from the audience is consumer behavior in the grocery segment going to remain the same, or will it change now post-COVID?
Sure. So I think I'll address that by adding to Mr. Radhikesh's point, that one of the things on loyalty, and that is having an impact on grocery also, is that consumers have started buying and showing clear preference for larger brands. So you look after category after category. Typically, any FMCG category, you'll find the top 3-4 players, they account for 60-70% or 40 to 60% of the entire purchase as per Nielsen. And then you have hundreds of players who will account for the last 10, 15, 25% of the business. Clearly, as consumers, we have started buying, trusting bigger brands. It was exacerbated by the fact that smaller companies, very, very small companies in our FMCG world, did not have the wherewithal to manufacture or to market in the pandemic. Even your modern trade and e-com, because they were so stuck in terms of the inventory management, they stopped buying from smaller brands. So bigger brands have become much more powerful. Be leaders, Ashirwad, even Maggie, for example, I'm saying. So that is one large thing which is happening. I think that will continue because, brands are hallmarks of trust. And clearly that is having an impact. Smaller players are getting sidelined. Consumers are preferring the larger brands. And that is clearly one thing. I think the second thing is that value purchasing will become essential. I talked about GDP, I talked about the pressures. Now let us take the last Diwali season, which we just ended. Now, just like chocolates, we also sell a lot of gift packs in Diwali in the north and west of India. We sell biscuit gift pack, we sell chocolate gift pack, we sell juice gift packs. We sell gift packs in the previous years from 100 rupees to 400 rupees. Very small amounts. Unlike, let's say, Dorset, I don't know how expensive their products are, but 100 rupees for us is very expensive. 300 is expensive. We are selling a daily product. There also we saw a difference that this year, because people had less money or less discretionary income or less willingness to put, the larger packs of gift packs were not getting sold as much as the 100 or 200 rupees. So that I think will continue, and it is something that we have to work on in terms of meeting the needs of the consumers.
Sanjay ji, very rightly you pointed out the value of branding here. I think brands play a very important role in the minds of consumers, and the way they position themselves drives the business. So there is a question which is related to that that has been asked by audience, that as we increase the integration of technology, you think brands are the ones who are doing that, or even the other companies, say for example regional brands or local brands, are they really able to integrate technologies? Any of the panelists can take up this question.
I think in hardware trade, we have experienced that even the smaller brands, they have gone towards that because you got the option depending upon your budget and your requirements. As I said earlier, that the virtual walkthrough for your application or for your products is a necessity today. So everybody is planning now. Depending on your budget, you can have options available. And we are seeing in our industry is people are surprising us. At times you get somebody, you benchmark something which is initiated by somebody who's not very big in size, very regional in nature. So it's all open game. I mean, everybody is trying to improve themselves. Everybody is trying to elevate their platform of experience and using the technology. So yes, there are limitations in terms of budget for the bigger technology. But I think everybody knows the importance. Even the smaller players, they are planning to use it.
I think you're right. Even the smaller players are now trying to digitize themselves and take the digital journey. So whether they start with just making their website done or having a social media presence, so it is a step-by-step journey for them based on their budgets and resources. But they have already initiated that journey. That is what I would supplement your answer with. I think we've all come to the end of questions that were, there from the audience. In the last, what I feel, we've had a very fruitful discussion. So the pandemic has actually upended businesses and disrupted definitely human lives, but it has also accelerated a lot of innovation as well as agility and resilience, which is, I think, expected to continue in the times to come. And I feel whether organizations in the consumer durable space or FMCG or home solutions, I think, or beauty, since Megha has left because of some personal reasons early. So I think all the companies around the industry, whichever space they're operating in, I think they're all trying to innovate, and they're looking at a brighter future, and hoping to continue their journey and look for more growth. Whether the growth is coming as a V-shaped growth or a U-shaped growth, there are different kinds of shapes that is being discussed for different product categories. I think the objective is having growth. So the graph should not be flat. The graph should be moving up. So that's the objective, and I think companies and organizations are very optimistic about it, and this journey is going to continue. But there is a last question that I want to raise from all the panelists in just 3 words. If you could summarize your future strategy, and we'll come to the end of the session. Starting with Sanjay ji, three things that your company is looking for growth. What are the 3 strategies? Yes, Sanjay ji. Shall I repeat my question?
No, I got the question.
Yeah.
So, I mean, clearly, strategy number 1, we are a consumer-facing company. Strategy number 1 always has to be that do even better at getting consumer insights, in understanding the supply chain of any products or any brands you want to offer to the consumer, and really make a difference to the offering that you're giving to the consumer. That is one. Secondly, we are ITC, and we always believe that sab saath saath badhe. That is our corporate motto. So basically, our strategy is clearly in terms of doing what is right for the Indian consumer, for the Indian environment and the Indian economy, in terms of supporting the farmers, supporting the environment and supporting rural incomes, or through our CSR activities. I think the third one is really in terms of making India proud, because I'm saying that as an organization, everything that I mean, and there are many other, Dorset and Somani, these are all Indian companies. So I think that also, I think, being partners to Modi ji's Atmanirbhar Bharat and walking the talk, which we do every day in terms of buying wheat or fruits or exporting Indian products to really do that. I think these are three broad strategies that I guess our company is following as we go forward.
Nikhil ji, your take.
Yeah, so I think our first focus will be definitely on the consumer experience, how with the help of technology, we can bring a better consumer delight and help us serve our consumers better. And then again, using the technology, how we can connect all our partners, whether it is retailers, whether it is e-commerce place, whether it is our B2B partners, influencers, how we can make a complete ecosystem to finally again serve our consumers better. And definitely similar to on the lines of Atmanirbhar Bharat. So it is both Atmanirbhar as well as eco-friendly. The consumer prefer products which are eco-friendly. You know, we are into business of water purifiers. So the moment we say our water purifier saves water and waste, reduce the wastage, there is an immediate acceptance among the consumers. So all these kind of social issues, whether it is Atmanirbhar or recycling of plastic waste, will be the direction which we'll be taking as an organization going forward.
Yes, Radhikesh ji.
Okay, for Dorset, I think the shifted gear of innovation during lockdown, which is in fast pace, we continue doing that. We continuing doing the innovative introduction of products or application of services. Number two will be continue empathizing with the stakeholders, understand their needs, understand their new needs, and help them in achieving that. And third would be do the basics first time correct. This is what we are working on and excel further. That's all about in few words.
That's it. I think so. I'll just summarize what our think tank has said. So it has to be consumer focused, technology focused, focusing on environment, becoming socially responsible, taking up together from here, and going by our policy of being Atmanirbhar and being vocal for local. So I'll end it up here. I think the entire session was quite insightful, and thank you so much, PHDCI. Ajay ji as well as Shashwat ji for giving this opportunity for all of us to come and deliberate on this very relevant and topic in today's time. So I'll hand it over to Mr. Kritivas Dalmia ji, who's going to present a word of thanks.
Thank you, Pooja ji. It is my great privilege and honor to propose a vote of thanks to all of the dignitaries who have made today's second session on Retail 360 Degrees, the future of retail, extremely successful. We are deeply grateful to all the panelists who have spoken extensively on the changes in consumer behavior post the pandemic for actionable consumer intelligence. The pandemic has surely reshaped the way many consumers seek and attain happiness, and this in turn is driving new consumer behavior and expectations from the brands. In an effort to respond to the fast-changing consumer behavior and demand patterns, some consumer companies hurriedly implemented agile practices and operating models to solve specific problems, quickly and efficiently reconfiguring strategy, structure, processes, people, and technology towards value creating and value protecting opportunity models. A few companies institutionalize agile methods across their organizations. Given consumer price sensitivity, value remains the primary concern for consumers to try new brands as well as to new places to shop. Aside from value, convenience and availability are most often cited as top drivers of consumer decisions about where to shop, while quality and purpose are the most important considerations when choosing new brands. There is a role for brands that coach rather than preach by offering tools to support individual goals and promote positive behavioral change. Brands that easily fit into everyday rituals will form part of consumer long-term rituals. The desire for individuality and shift towards sustainable living is driving the uptake of do-it-yourself formats. This creates opportunities for brands to offer platforms and solutions that inspire consumers to creatively express themselves in their own terms through maker collaborations, DIY recipes, self-serve apps, and cross-category competitions that tap into DIY entrepreneurship. Consumer behavior is ever evolving, and retailers will always need to be sensitive of that. While most of the changes are not permanent, some will be. Retailers must prepare to see the new technology consumers have been exposed to, contactless payments, digital touchpads, kiosks, and more, and incorporate the same as service enhancements that remain even after normalcy returns. We know that COVID-19 remains a consideration for consumers as they have visited brick and mortar locations less frequently in the past year. Such reasons undoubtedly include fear that a business is not implementing adequate measures to protect their health. Though we know that a large contingent of consumers value the brick and mortar experience, they also value their health. Using digital signs to subtly communicate your in-store safety protocols without breaking the consumer's sense of escapism means catering to those concerned about their health, while also considering those looking to escape COVID-19. In order to appeal to younger shoppers, especially following a year of wavering brand loyalty, and I think we covered that in great detail, consumers must evaluate their values and be prepared to share them with consumers. Brands that are consistently vocal about genuine stance on issues such as sustainability or racial justice have a better chance of winning over Generation Z in 2021 than those that are not. In conclusion, a better understanding of how 2020 has shaped a new era of consumer behavior will help guide retailers and brands to success in 2021 and beyond. With this, I express my profound thanks to all the panelists and our moderator Pooja Jain for sharing their views with us on a topic of such contemporary relevance. I also express my sincere thanks to the delegates and other esteemed guests who have taken keen interest in the program and have taken out time from their busy schedules to attend this session. We deeply apologize for overstretching by 15 minutes. I also appreciate my sincere thanks to Dr. Yogesh Srivastava, the Assistant Secretary General, Mr. Ajay Bansal, the Secretary for the Retail Committee, Shashwat Ji, our Chairman, and Saurabh Ji, my Co-Chairman, and the entire team behind for their hard work and consistent efforts. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Everyone. Thank you.